Ethan Thompson, let's get a divorce. In the living room, Ethan stared at the beautiful woman standing before him, the one asking for a divorce. His eyes held a strange look, as if seeing her for the first time. In truth, this woman was his wife, Sarah. They'd been together since college, got married shortly after graduation, and this marked their 3rd year of marriage. So, it's just for the $100,000 plus then? Ethan finally spoke after a long silence, his expression calm as he asked. Sarah Young had a BFF named Jessica Smith. Recently, Jessica's grandfather passed away, leaving her a substantial inheritance. However, to claim it, she had to fulfill the terms of his will, get married, and within a year. Otherwise, the entire inheritance would go to charity, leaving her with nothing. The problem was, Jessica Smith was staunchly against marriage and didn't have many male friends, making it impossible to find a suitable husband on short notice. Plus, marrying a stranger felt risky. So, desperate to marry, Jessica had poured out her troubles to her friends at a gathering today. One person speaks casually, another listens intently. Sarah had piped up, suggesting she had a husband Jessica could borrow for the marriage. The price? $100,000 plus. Surprisingly, Jessica Smith agreed. The two BFFs quickly struck a deal. Sarah would lend Ethan to Jessica for a sham marriage lasting 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, they'd divorce. Ethan would return to Sarah, and Jessica would pay the fee. Everything would go back to normal, as if nothing had happened. And so, that led to this moment, with Sarah asking Ethan for a divorce the moment she got home. Of course, it's over $100,000. Look at the miserable life I've had these past 3 years married to you. Now, there's a chance to make big money. Are you really going to let it slip away? Sarah pouted, her face a mask of aggrieved complaint. So, these 3 years married to me. You feel like you've been wronged. Ethan ignored her question, instead gazing at her beautiful face and asking the question that had lingered in his heart for 3 years. He had pursued Sarah back in college. Back then, Sarah was simpler. A single bouquet of roses from Ethan could make her happy for days. Even though Ethan couldn't shower her with iPhones, expensive bags, or lavish gifts like other girls' boyfriends, Sarah had felt happy just being with him. Simply because Ethan treated her well. He'd take meticulous care of her when she got her period. When her living allowance ran out, he'd give her all his money without hesitation. Whenever she faced difficulties, he'd be there for her immediately, rain or shine, solving all her problems. And back then, Ethan felt like the luckiest boy in the world because he had found the world's greatest treasure of a girl. But as time went on, Sarah gradually changed. When he gave her gifts he'd carefully prepared himself, she'd scoff at them for being cheap. When Ethan picked her up on his scooter, she'd enviously eye the girls getting into Maybachs. When Ethan gave her all his living expenses, she complained it wasn't enough. Ethan thought he wasn't doing enough, so he doubled down, treating Sarah even better than before. After they married, he treated her like a princess, taking care of her every need with utmost consideration, practically worshiping the ground she walked on. Outside of work, he handled all the chores, allowing Sarah to live these 3 years without ever lifting a finger. Furthermore, he handed over his entire monthly salary of over $10,000, leaving himself less than $1,000 for living expenses. He'd agonize over taking a taxi. Meanwhile, Sarah took his hard-earned money and lived a socialite lifestyle. Fancy steak dinners, trips around the world, designer cosmetics, expensive dresses. And still, she complained that Ethan couldn't provide her with a better life. It wasn't until today, when Sarah asked for a divorce, that Ethan finally understood. It wasn't that he hadn't done enough. It was that the Sarah of today was no longer that simple girl from the past. Somehow, she had become insatiable. Her appetite was never satisfied, her greed a bottomless pit. And he, no matter how hard he tried, was ultimately just an ordinary guy. Sarah curled her lip, speaking as if it were obvious. Of course I've been wronged. Think about the miserable life I've led these 3 years with you. My friends all live in sprawling apartments or mansions, take overseas trips whenever they want, and buy clothes worth tens of thousands on a whim. Look at the life you've given me. No house, this tiny 1,000 SQ. FD. Place is rented. What good is your monthly salary? It's not even enough for me to buy a handbag. Now there's $100,000 plus practically falling into our laps just by getting divorced, and you're unwilling? Ethan, are you deliberately trying to keep me from having a good life? Looking at the self-righteous Sarah, her beautiful face now etched with acidity and harshness, it was hard to imagine this was the same woman who once cried tears of joy over a single flower he gave her. Ethan fell silent for a moment, then asked softly, Sarah, Have you forgotten the vows we made before we got married? Vows? What vows? Sarah looked momentarily stunned, a flicker of confusion on her pretty face. A bitter, self-mocking smile touched Ethan's lips. It seems you really have forgotten. Before we married, we swore an oath to the heavens, to never divorce, to always be together through thick and thin. He vividly recalled the moment they had knelt together, facing the sky, making that promise. The memory was still fresh, as clear as if it happened yesterday. Back then, filled with hopeful anticipation for their future, they had chosen each other steadfastly. They had solemnly sworn that no matter what hardships they faced, they would absolutely never divorce, never abandon each other. But now, a mere $100,000 plus was enough to casually betray those vows. Ethan found it laughable and deeply pathetic. Sarah frowned, thinking hard for a long moment before finally recalling the vow. She chuckled dismissively. It's just a vow, isn't it? How many years ago was that? Why are you still holding on to it? Besides, we're not really getting divorced. It's a trial separation. It's just for the money. What's the big deal? In her eyes, it was just a temporary arrangement, a trial separation. After 2 weeks, everything would go back to normal, and they wouldn't have lost anything. Why not do it? For money. Ethan's heart grew cold. To him, marriage was sacred, not something to be casually entered into and dissolved at will. He had always believed Sarah shared his reverence for marriage. Now it seemed he was wrong. Sarah put on a serious expression. Ethan, with this $100,000 plus, I can finally go on a world tour. You know I've always wanted to travel the world. It's been my dream. Isn't there a part of you that wants to help me achieve it? Ethan, don't you love me anymore? Ethan's expression turned icy. Help you? By marrying another woman. At this moment, any lingering hope he had for his wife vanished. Sarah's elegant eyebrows furrowed with impatience. I told you, it's just a trial separation. Why are you being so serious about it? After 2 weeks, we could just get remarried, can't we? Seeing Sarah's impatience, Ethan didn't want to argue anymore. He sighed softly, stood up, looking utterly exhausted. All right, since you want this divorce so badly, I'll grant your wish. He walked back to his room. He was tired, so incredibly tired. All these years, he had worked so hard to maintain this marriage, only to find it wasn't worth even $100,000 plus. Right now, all he wanted was to sleep until oblivion. He didn't want to dwell on anything anymore. If she wanted a divorce, then let be. As far as he was concerned, this marriage was already dead. Okay then, we'll go to City Hall first thing tomorrow morning to get the divorce. Don't worry, it's just a trial separation, Sarah called after his retreating back, a delighted smile spreading across her face. $100,000 plus. I can finally buy those clothes I wanted and those handbags, and go on my world tour. Just thinking about it makes me happy. The next day dawned bright and clear. Outside Green Valley City Hall, Ethan and Sarah parked their car. As they looked up, they saw an elegant figure already waiting eagerly by the entrance. The woman looked to be approaching 30. Beneath a head of glossy black hair was a beautiful oval face, framed by curled lashes above large, expressive eyes. A straight, elegant nose and soft pink lips completed the picture. Her delicate features were perfectly arranged on her fair complexion, creating a face of cool, stunning beauty. One glance was enough to leave a person breathless. This unbelievably beautiful woman was none other than Sarah's BFF, Jessica Smith. She wore a simple white short-sleeve top, tight blue jeans, and flat shoes. The top was a standard size, yet it strained taut against her ample bosom. The tight jeans accentuated a slender waist and full, rounded hips. Below, her long, slender, straight legs were incredibly eye-catching. The outfit was clean and fresh, clearly chosen specifically for wedding photos. You're here. Seeing the couple get out of the car, Jessica hurried down the steps to greet them. A radiant, captivating smile bloomed on her exquisite face. Her eyes lit up, especially the moment she saw Ethan. Though she quickly averted her gaze, her expression returning to normal. Jessica, we agreed. Today we get divorced, you marry my husband, and then you give me the $30,000 cash payment first. In 2 weeks, you pay the remaining $700,000. Any problem with that? Sarah asked with a smile, her eyes still solely focused on the money. Of course not, Jessica chuckled lightly. All right, then I'll go get the divorce finalized, Sarah declared, grabbing Ethan and bustling into City Hall. Jessica watched them go, a faint smile gracing her beautiful face. Ethan, I'm finally going to be with you. Inside City Hall, at the marriage registration office, the clerk, a woman in her 40s, looked at the couple. Out of professional obligation, she felt compelled to ask, "Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Once I stamp this, the two of you will no longer be husband and wife." Ethan opened his mouth, about to say something, but Sarah impatiently urged, "Oh, just hurry up and process it for us, ma'am. We've already made up our minds." Ethan looked at her eager face, ultimately just shaking his head slightly and saying no more. The clerk glanced at the hesitant Ethan, seemingly sensing his reluctance to divorce, a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. But she didn't press further. With the fall of the official stamp, their marriage was officially dissolved. Soon, Ethan and Sarah walked out of City Hall. Jessica immediately rushed over, asking with barely concealed eagerness, "How did it go? Are you divorced?" "Yes, we are." "Okay, hurry up and go register your marriage with my husband," Sarah said with a satisfied grin, practically pushing the two back into City Hall. Inside the City Hall lobby, "Young man, are you here to get married?" The same clerk, now seeing Ethan sitting at the window preparing to register for marriage, couldn't help but stare wide-eyed. She had just processed his divorce, stepped out for a quick restroom break, and returned to find him marrying another beautiful woman. Even after working this job for over a decade and witnessing countless unions and separations, she was still genuinely shocked. A moment ago, she'd thought Ethan didn't want the divorce and had felt sorry for him. Now, she realized how wrong she'd been. This seemingly honest young man was actually a jerk, divorcing one beauty only to immediately marry an even more stunning one. It hadn't even been 30 minutes. Talk about a seamless transition. Ethan merely nodded slightly, his expression calm, betraying no emotion. Jessica, however, was visibly excited, her joy bubbling over. She took out pre-prepared wedding favors from her bag, enthusiastically handing a small cash gift envelope to the clerk and distributing more to the other staff members. "Kids these days, so efficient," the clerk remarked with amusement, tucking the envelope into her pocket before heading off to the restroom again. Soon, after taking their wedding photos and completing the registration, they received their marriage certificates. "Let me hold on to the certificates for now. I'll put them safely in my bag," Jessica said, as if worried Ethan might lose his. Oh, Ethan, his heart feeling like dead ashes, didn't care either way and handed his certificate over. Jessica held both certificates, looking at them together with an expression of immense satisfaction before carefully placing them back in her bag. "Let's go." They walked out of City Hall side by side. "So, did you and my husband get the certificates?" Sarah asked impatiently. "Yeah, we got them," Jessica replied with a smile. "Then the $30,000. Relax, I'll transfer it to you shortly. I won't go back on my word. In 2 weeks, I'll transfer the remaining $700,000. Jessica then remembered something. "Right, now that Ethan and I are married, we'll need to live together for a while. We have to convince those people so I can get the inheritance. You don't mind, do you?" "It's fine. I already figured as much," Sarah waved dismissively, then added sternly, "But you two can't actually cheat on each other." Jessica immediately promised, "All right, don't worry. It's just a trial separation. Someone like your husband? Even if you offered him to me, I wouldn't be interested." Seeing Jessica's disdainful expression, Sarah felt completely reassured. "Okay, let me have a private word with my husband. You wait here." Sarah pulled Ethan to a quiet corner and instructed him seriously. "Ethan, listen to me. You can't cheat on each other, understand?" Ethan simply looked at her calmly, as if staring at a stranger, and said flatly, "Sarah, we're divorced. What I do is none of your business anymore." "You?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Ethan, we agreed it's just a trial separation. Don't you get it? Trial separation?" Ethan scoffed coldly. "Sarah, as far as I'm concerned, divorced means divorced. There's no real or fake about it. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other." Ethan gave her one last cold look and turned away. He walked away, not planning to look back. "Hey, you." Sarah watched his retreating back, opening her mouth as if to say something, but ended up just sighing. "Forget it. He's angry right now. He'll cool down in a few days. For the sake of the $30,000 I'm about to get, I won't argue with you." The thought of the impending $30,000 cash made Sarah stir with anticipation. That was $30,000. Enough for her to splurge for quite a while. While Ethan and Jessica were living together, she could enjoy a hedonistic, unrestrained lifestyle all by herself. After getting the $700,000 in 2 weeks, she'd go on a world tour. As for whether Ethan would reconcile with her, that wasn't even on her mind right now. Having been with Ethan for so many years, she knew him too well. She was acutely aware of how much he loved her. This trial separation wasn't a small matter, so it was normal for him to be upset. Once he calmed down after a while, he'd come around. "Actually, if I weren't pregnant, I really would want to divorce you," Sarah murmured softly, looking at Ethan's back and gently touching her flat stomach. She'd been with Ethan for 3 years. The reason she hadn't gotten pregnant before was because she had trouble conceiving. Knowing this, she had rarely used condoms during her years of partying and seeking pleasure outside the relationship. Unexpectedly, last week, she found out she was pregnant, and she honestly didn't know who the baby's father was. It could be Ethan's, or it could be someone else's. Initially, she considered getting an abortion, but then she remembered her difficulty conceiving. If she missed this chance, she might never be a mother. She couldn't bear the thought. So, she decided to keep the baby. Besides, Ethan had always wanted a child, and with this baby, she felt even more confident that Ethan would reconcile with her. After all, if she didn't say anything, Ethan would just assume it was his child. Soon enough, Sarah's iPhone pinged with a notification about a cash gift of over $30,000. Having never possessed so much money before, Sarah was ecstatic. She immediately drove off, eager to start spending her windfall. Back at the City Hall entrance, only Ethan and Jessica remained. "Let's go home too," Jessica said, a gentle smile gracing her features. She led Ethan to a white Lamborghini parked by the roadside. Ethan wasn't surprised by the luxury sports car. Jessica was, after all, a well-known socialite. Her grandfather was the tycoon behind EverSafe Insurance Group, the kind worth tens of billions. Once she inherited her grandfather's estate, she would become a young billionaire heiress. Approaching 30, already set to be worth billions, and stunningly beautiful. Whoever married her would have life practically handed to him. However, none of that concerned Ethan. He knew very well that his marriage to Jessica was merely a trial separation. In 2 weeks, once Jessica secured her inheritance, they would revert to being just ordinary friends. "Mister, why don't you drive?" Jessica suddenly offered, holding out a car key with her long, slender, fair hand, calling him by the title with a playful smile. "Yo, what did you call me?" Ethan froze, turning to stare at Jessica in astonishment, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "Mister, is there a problem?" Jessica beamed, her large, bright, captivating eyes fixed directly on him, a hint of mischief in her expression. Isn't this a trial separation?" For some reason, meeting her gaze made Ethan inexplicably flustered. He looked away, asking with a trace of confusion, "Even if it's a trial separation, you're still my legally recognized husband right now. It's perfectly natural for me to call you mister." Jessica tilted her smooth chin up, looking a touch smugly proud. "All right, whatever makes you happy." Ethan really couldn't argue. Their current marital status was indeed legally protected. "Oh, right, mister, from now on, you have to call me wife, understand?" "What?" Ethan had just barely processed Jessica calling him mister, and now he was expected to call her wife. He simply couldn't adjust that quickly. Besides, this woman was his ex-wife's BFF. Calling her wife felt strange. Jessica took a step closer, patiently explaining, "Think about it. Even though it's a trial separation, we need to act like a real married couple to convince those people. So, asking you to call me wife is perfectly reasonable, right?" Ethan considered it. Her logic seemed sound. He nodded, "Reasonable. Then let me hear you say wife." Jessica looked at him, her pretty face lit with a smile, her large eyes full of anticipation. Gazing at the stunningly beautiful face before him, inhaling the faint, fresh scent emanating from her, Ethan braced himself and softly uttered, "Why, wife?" Ethan clearly saw Jessica's eyes light up the instant he said the word. The corners of her mouth visibly curved upwards, and a ripple of pure joy uncontrollably spread across her lovely face. Not bad, not bad. It would be even better if you said it with a bit more feeling." Jessica tried to suppress her grin, but her expression still radiated unrestrained happiness. "All right, mister, you drive. Let's go home." Jessica pressed the car keys into Ethan's hand, then walked briskly to the passenger side, opened the door, and got in. Ethan took a deep breath to compose himself before walking to the driver's seat, opening the door, and sliding in. The moment he settled into the seat, an indescribable sense of comfort washed over him. He owned a car, but on his salary, he could only afford a practical domestic model costing just over $10,000. He rarely got the chance to drive luxury cars like this, worth millions. He started the engine, shifted into gear, and stepped on the gas. The car instantly surged forward. The feeling of being pushed back into the seat was both thrilling and addictive. Though he drove often, this was a distinctly different experience for Ethan. The white Lamborghini cruised through the bustling streets, attracting numerous glances along the way. Since it was his first time driving such a high-performance sports car, Ethan was highly focused. He completely failed to notice Jessica staring intently at his profile, seemingly unable to get enough, her eyes filled with deep satisfaction. A gentle smile constantly played on her exquisite lips. This is wonderful. Now, Ethan was finally hers. Truthfully, she had harbored a secret for 17 years. A boy she had liked for 17 years. And that boy was the man beside her now, Ethan. They had attended the same Green Valley Elementary School. She had developed feelings for Ethan when she was just 10. For him, she followed him to the same middle school, high school, and even the same Green Valley University. Her original plan was to pursue Ethan once they started university. However, fate had other plans. Soon after starting university, Ethan got together with Sarah. She could only bury her secret deeper within her heart, secretly observing Ethan's life from afar. To create opportunities to see the boy she adored, she even went as far as getting close to Sarah, eventually becoming her BFF. Because of her deep love for Ethan, she had remained single all these years. To deal with her grandfather's relentless pressure to marry and inquiries from friends, she even claimed publicly that she believed in never marrying. In reality, there was no such belief. It was simply that she couldn't marry the person she loved, so she wouldn't marry at all. Her original intention was to spend her whole life like this, loving Ethan secretly from the sidelines. That would be enough. As long as she could see Ethan happy, she would be content. But she couldn't see happiness in Ethan's marriage. She only saw the boy she had loved for 17 years, the boy who occupied her thoughts constantly, being recklessly hurt, bullied, and manipulated by Sarah. During their 3 years of marriage, Ethan treated Sarah like a princess, giving her the best of everything. Yet Sarah was never satisfied, always demanding more. She watched Ethan live a life worse than a dog's for 3 years. Her heart ached terribly for him, but there was nothing she could do. Until her grandfather passed away, leaving her a substantial inheritance. Her grandfather's biggest worry had been her. Knowing she claimed to be against marriage, he feared no one would take care of his precious granddaughter after he was gone. So, before dying, he stipulated in his will that Jessica could only receive the inheritance if she married. When Jessica learned about this condition, her first thought was, if she had to marry, then Jessica, would only marry Ethan. She didn't want to marry anyone else. Otherwise, she would rather forfeit the inheritance. But Ethan was already married. How could she possibly be with him? This predicament troubled her greatly. At a party, she vented her anxieties about needing to marry quickly to her friends. She had only meant to confide, but as the saying goes, the speaker may be unintentional, but the listener pays attention. Sarah later approached her privately. She proactively suggested lending her husband to Jessica for a while. Hearing this explosive proposal, Jessica's initial reaction was instinctive refusal. Although she loved Ethan deeply, there's an old saying, it's better to tear down 10 temples than to destroy one marriage. Even after she refused, Sarah persisted, persuading her that it was just a trial separation. They could divorce after Jessica received the inheritance. Honestly, Jessica was initially resistant, but under Sarah's patient coaxing, she gradually began to waver. After all, Ethan was the unattainable ideal she had loved for 17 years, the lingering regret deep in her heart. Even a trial separation with Ethan was incredibly tempting. So, under Sarah's repeated persuasion, she couldn't resist the temptation and finally agreed. Even if, after 2 weeks, Ethan were to reconcile with Sarah, being Ethan's wife for just 2 weeks would leave her with no regrets for the rest of her life. The moment she made up her mind and agreed, she silently vowed to herself. During these 2 weeks, she would treat Ethan 1,000 times, 10,000 times better. She would compensate 1,000 times over for all the hurt Ethan had suffered at Sarah's hands. After all, this was the boy she had loved for 17 long years. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Finally, Ethan noticed Jessica's intense gaze. He couldn't help but raise a hand to touch his cheek, thinking there must be something there for her to stare at him like that. No, nothing. Jessica quickly retracted her gaze, a faint blush rising on her pretty cheeks. Being caught staring so directly at the person you liked felt genuinely embarrassing. Silence quickly fell in the car again. Ethan focused on driving. Jessica thought for a moment, then took out the 2 marriage certificates from her bag. She opened them, placed them side by side, and gazed at her and Ethan's wedding photo, seemingly unable to look away, a smile once again blooming uncontrollably on her lips. This joy was impossible to hide, impossible to control. Her 17-year-long cherished wish was fulfilled. At this moment, she felt like the happiest girl in the entire world. Before today, she had always believed that she and Ethan were an impossibility. But now, she was actually married to Ethan. It felt unreal, like a dream. The The scene she had dreamed of countless times had truly come true today, just like a dream. You seem very happy, huh? Ethan managed to glance at her, unable to resist asking. Jessica looked up at him, her eyes sparkling with laughter, and nodded emphatically. Very happy. Ethan remarked with some feeling. I'd be happy too if I were you. Inheriting such a huge fortune, you won't have to work for the rest of your life. Jessica paused for a second, then broke into a soft laugh. He misunderstood. Her happiness wasn't because of the massive inheritance. It was because she could be Ethan's wife for 2 weeks. Even just 2 weeks with him meant more to her than those tens of billions. Yes, who wouldn't be happy inheriting a fortune? I'm absolutely thrilled. Jessica nodded with a smile, choosing not to correct him. About 10 minutes later, the Lamborghini pulled onto the grounds of a manor, stopping in front of a large mansion. Ethan got out of the car, gazing at the luxurious and imposing mansion before him and the vast flower garden spreading out in front. He was slightly astonished. This was his first time visiting Jessica's home, and he hadn't expected it to be even more luxurious than he'd imagined. Several young men in suits stood at the mansion entrance, each standing ramrod straight with stern expressions, looking exactly like the security personnel flanking an overbearing CEO in an idol drama. After Ethan and Jessica got out of the car, the men hurried over, respectfully greeting them. Welcome, miss. Welcome, mister. The scene momentarily gave Ethan the strange feeling that he was the one playing the overbearing CEO. Then, an observant member of the security team drove the sports car into the garage. In addition, there were maids and a housekeeper inside the mansion, as well as gardeners tending the flower garden. Just as Ethan was curiously observing his surroundings, Jessica had quietly appeared beside him. She reached out a delicate, fair hand and took hold of his. Then, her slender fingers slipped between his, boldly interlacing with his own as she held on tightly. Ethan froze for a second, turning his head to stare in astonishment at Jessica's exquisitely beautiful side profile. Jessica turned her head towards him, a smile playing on her lips as she whispered, "There are so many people in my house. To stop them from realizing our marriage is fake, holding hands is perfectly reasonable, right?" Ethan subtly glanced around. He noticed many of the security personnel and workers were indeed stealing glances at their Mrs. new husband, namely him. Reasonable. Ethan thought for a moment. She had a point, so he let her keep holding his hand. He was divorced now anyway, so he didn't really care. Let her. Still, he had to admit, Jessica's small hand felt quite comfortable in his. It was smooth, delicate, and soft, yet cool to the touch, with only a slight warmth emanating from her palm. It had been a long time since Ethan had held hands like this. It seemed that less than a year into his marriage, he had rarely held hands with Sarah Thompson. He could sense that Sarah, back then, had already begun to physically resist contact with him. Suddenly holding hands like this made Ethan feel, for a fleeting moment, as if he were dating again. Meanwhile, Jessica, holding Ethan's large hand, was feeling anything but calm herself. Holding hands like this was something she had imagined countless times in her heart and dreamed of just as often. At this moment, she could clearly feel her heart beating faster, and her cheeks were visibly flushing. The smile she had struggled to suppress kept uncontrollably creeping back up her lips. "Let's go." Jessica's voice held an obvious lilt of joy as she pulled Ethan along with light steps towards the nearby mansion doors. She truly wished she could hold Ethan's hand like this forever, never letting go. Ethan's hand was large, enough to completely envelop hers, and it was very warm. This filled her heart with a profound sense of security and an incredibly grounded feeling. It felt so good. She was finally holding the hand of the boy she liked. Joy surged through Jessica's heart. Soon, she had pulled Ethan onto the ground floor of the mansion. Looking around, he saw it was spacious and bright, decorated with the utmost luxury, radiating opulence. Jessica had just pulled Ethan down to sit when the housekeeper immediately approached, serving them 2 glasses of warm water. Ethan was indeed thirsty and downed 1 glass in a single go. "Hey, Ethan put down his glass and turned to the girl beside him. "Can you let go of my hand now?" She still hadn't released it. "Oh, right, I forgot." Jessica let go with a sheepish laugh, looking slightly embarrassed. Then, remembering something, she said, "Oh, right, there's a flower garden out front, and out back there's a swimming pool and a golf course. To the east of the mansion, there's a fitness center, and to the west, there's a koi pond. If you get bored, feel free to wander around the grounds. Really, just make yourself at home. Also, since you just moved in, I already had someone prepare some daily necessities for you. I'll take you to see them later. If you think anything's missing, just tell me, and I'll have someone buy it." Ethan shook his head, seeming unconcerned. It doesn't matter. As long as you've prepared something, that's fine. I don't have many requirements. Just enough to get by is okay. During his 3 years of marriage, Ethan had grown accustomed to living frugally day to day and didn't have high expectations for his lifestyle. Jessica was a thoughtful and considerate girl who considered things from every angle. Since she had prepared necessities for him, they would surely be sufficient. All right then, Jessica nodded, then added, oh, right, I also set up a game room for you here in the mansion. You can play games there if you're bored. Come on, I'll show you. Saying this, she eagerly pulled Ethan along and hurried up the stairs. Reaching the second floor, Jessica opened a door. Come in. She pulled Ethan into the room. It was huge, easily 1,000 SQ. FD. Bigger than his entire rented apartment. Inside, there wasn't just a computer, but also a sofa, a soft large bed, a refrigerator, a beverage dispenser, various pieces of exercise equipment, and even a pool table. I had someone custom build this computer just now. It's all top spec, Jessica said, standing by the computer desk with a beaming smile. All the popular games are already downloaded and purchased on it, so you could just start playing. I remember you used to love playing games back in college. Ethan looked at the girl before him, feeling inexplicably touched for a moment. It was true he had enjoyed gaming back in college. After all, what guy doesn't have a hobby? But ever since getting married, Ethan hadn't played at all. He'd been forced to give up this hobby entirely. Simply because Sarah Thompson felt that gaming was a waste of time and buying games cost money, she'd gone ahead and sold his computer on a second-hand website, leaving him only with a cheap laptop for basic work tasks. He had almost forgotten what it even felt like to play games. If you get tired from playing, you can rest on the sofa or the bed. If you get thirsty, there's the beverage dispenser and the fridge, which has cold drinks inside. If you need anything else, just step outside and tell the housekeeper. She'll take care of all your requests. Oh, and you can also work out in here. Jessica led him over to the various exercise machines, then pointed to the nearby pool table. Also, I remember you quite liked playing pool in college, so I had someone put a pool table in. Unfortunately, I don't know how to play, otherwise I could play with you. Thank you. Jessica was focused on showing Ethan the room's features when she suddenly heard his incredibly gentle voice. Jessica paused, turning her head to see Ethan gazing at her, his eyes soft. In those eyes was a tenderness she had never experienced before. It's nothing. Jessica suddenly felt her breath quicken, and her heart began to beat faster again. Even the corners of her mouth threatened to betray an irrepressible smile. She lowered her head shyly, hoping Ethan wouldn't see her flushing cheeks. Actually, Ethan walked over to the computer desk, his hand brushing over the mouse and keyboard. I haven't played games in a long time, he remarked softly, a hint of melancholy in his voice. I probably don't even know how anymore. The smile vanished instantly from Jessica's face. She looked up at Ethan's slightly forlorn back. At that moment, her heart ached inexplicably. During the 3 years he was married to Sarah Thompson, Ethan had become much more withdrawn and subdued. Many of his interests and hobbies had been stripped away. She could clearly sense that the Ethan before and after marriage were like two different people. The pre-marriage Ethan had been cheerful and bright, handsome, confident, and always smiling. But the post-marriage Ethan had gradually become quiet and reserved, the light slowly fading from his eyes. It's okay. Jessica walked up to him, her expression earnest. From now on, while you're here, you can do whatever you want. Nobody can tell you what to do. Her gaze towards Ethan held unprecedented tenderness. Ethan turned his head, taking in her earnest expression and the tenderness in her eyes. His Adam's apple bobbed. Thank you. Don't mention it. As long as you like it. Jessica offered a soft smile. But Ethan looked around the room, which had clearly been prepared especially for him, and asked, puzzled, We're only pretending to be married. We'll be separating in 2 weeks. You didn't need to go to all this trouble preparing so much for me. Personally, as long as I have a place to sleep and don't go hungry, I'm fine. Jessica's heart clenched again, but she forced herself to suppress her emotions, saying with a light laugh, It's only right that I treat you well. After all, by marrying me, you did me a huge favor, didn't you? Without you, I wouldn't get my inheritance. Jessica took a step closer, standing right in front of Ethan, and gazed into his eyes. So, all the good things I do for you, you have to accept them with peace of mind, understand? Looking at Ethan before her, his expression tinged with weariness from the divorce, Jessica's only thought now was to pour everything she had into being good to him. Inheritance or no inheritance, none of it mattered anymore. Thank you. At 7 p.m., a bright moon hung in the night sky, casting silvery light. Inside the spacious, well-lit manor, Ethan was chatting with Jessica on the sofa. Just then, An old man with white hair entered the manor, accompanied by 4 or 5 security personnel. "Robert Lewis, you're back." Jessica Smith greeted him with a smile. "Miss, this must be the Mr., I presume?" Robert Lewis looked at Ethan Thompson, sitting beside Jessica Smith, a kind smile softening his wrinkled face. "Yes. Honey, look, this is Robert Lewis." Jessica Smith introduced him enthusiastically to Ethan Thompson. Ethan Thompson focused his gaze. Before him stood an old man with stark white hair, yet his body seemed robust. He wore glasses and had a gentle, benevolent look about him. "Hello, Robert Lewis." Ethan Thompson greeted him politely. He had heard Jessica Smith mention Robert Lewis before. Robert Lewis was the Smith family's butler, now 72 years old. He and Jessica Smith's grandfather had been incredibly close, like brothers in all but blood. For Jessica Smith to inherit, their marriage needed Robert Lewis's approval. It was clear from Jessica Smith's demeanor how much she respected him. Though he was the butler, she treated him not as staff, but as a true elder. "Mr., the steak dinner is ready." Robert Lewis reappeared beside them about 10 minutes later, reporting softly. "All right, Robert Lewis, we understand." Jessica Smith smiled and nodded gently, then grabbed Ethan Thompson's hand and walked briskly towards the dining table. "Honey, let's go eat." Ethan Thompson didn't resist the sudden intimacy of Jessica Smith holding his hand. After all, they were currently playing the part of a newlywed couple. Acting too distant would easily arouse suspicion. The long dining table was already laden with a dazzling array of dishes, each looking, smelling, and tasting exquisite. At a glance, there were easily 20 or 30 different plates, a dizzying, overwhelming sight. "Honey, try this, it's delicious." Jessica Smith seemed genuinely happy, the smile never leaving her pretty oval face. She frequently served Ethan Thompson food, fully immersing herself in the role of a wife. There was nothing awkward about it. Her performance was incredibly convincing, making Ethan Thompson secretly admire her acting talent. He, on the other hand, felt somewhat flattered, yet overwhelmed, acting a bit reserved. This lavish spread, coupled with the butler and 2 housekeepers standing nearby, it was a scene far beyond anything he'd ever imagined. Besides, he and Jessica Smith were only a fake couple. Watching her attentively place food on his plate felt truly unfamiliar. Thanks." Ethan Thompson nodded his appreciation. Jessica Smith beamed. "Honey, we're husband and wife. No need for thanks." Ethan Thompson realized she was right. Acting too polite would look suspicious. So, he shed his reservations and started serving her as well. "You too, honey. Eat this." Acting? Who can't act? However, Jessica Smith froze when he placed the food in her bowl. She stared blankly at his profile, utterly stunned. Ethan Thompson was acting, but she felt it for real. In that instant, she truly felt like Ethan Thompson's wife, basking in his care and affection. It sent a wave of warmth through the heart that had been lonely for 17 years. "Honey, don't just look at me. Eat before it gets cold," Ethan Thompson said. Jessica Smith nodded deeply, a sweet smile gracing her lovely lips. She picked up the food from her bowl. Tasting it, she found it unbelievably delicious. Her heart felt warm too. Standing beside them, Robert Lewis couldn't help but smile with relief upon seeing this scene. He had watched Jessica Smith grow up. In his eyes, she wasn't just the young mistress of the Smith family, but also like his own granddaughter. For years, Jessica Smith had avoided dating, even shied away from men, declaring she'd never marry. This had worried him deeply. He truly feared she would end up alone forever. But now, seeing Jessica Smith and Ethan Thompson acting so close and affectionate, the weight on his heart finally lifted. His miss had finally found a man she liked. Now, even if he were to pass away one day, he could rest easy. Soon, the steak dinner concluded. It was still early, so Ethan Thompson watched a movie with Jessica Smith in the living room. At 10 p.m., the movie ended, and it was time for bed. "Let's go, honey, time for sleep." Jessica Smith took Ethan Thompson's large hand and stood up, heading upstairs. Ethan Thompson glanced at their joined hands, feeling completely unfazed now. He had grown accustomed to this level of physical intimacy with Jessica Smith. He was used to it. But Jessica Smith, walking ahead, was still thrilled, happy just to be holding her crush's hand again. Holding hands again, the 3rd time today. So happy. If only I could hold his hand like this every day. His hand is so big, so warm. I wish I could hold on forever. Never let go. Jessica Smith thought dreamily, but the thought that Ethan Thompson might leave her in 2 weeks brought a wave of melancholy. Soon, Jessica Smith led Ethan Thompson into her room. "Are we sleeping in the same room?" Ethan Thompson asked uncertainly, looking around the spacious, tidy room. It was clearly Jessica Smith's bedroom. Large, with an ensuite bathroom and a balcony. The bed was also huge, easily big enough for two people without any risk of falling off or breaking it. The sheets and duvet had been changed to a festive red, and romantic rose petals were scattered across them. Of course, we're officially married now. Sleeping in the same room is perfectly reasonable, so Robert Lewis and the others don't suspect anything, right? Jessica Smith nodded, stating it as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Air. Ethan Thompson considered it. Her logic was sound. Reasonable, he agreed. But are we sleeping in the same bed? Ethan Thompson knew perfectly well they were only fake married, and there were no real feelings between them. Sleeping in the same bed felt far too intimate. Okay, relax. I'll make a bed on the floor later. You can have the bed. Jessica Smith also understood. Their marriage was hasty, just a transaction. Even though she had deep feelings for Ethan Thompson, he had only ever seen her as his wife's best friend. Sleeping with his wife's BFF. That wouldn't sit right. Oh, I see. Ethan Thompson finally understood. Of course, he thought, a young lady from a prominent family like Jessica Smith wouldn't just sleep in the same bed with him. He paused, then offered, I should sleep on the floor. You're a girl. How can I let you sleep on the floor? Besides, I'm the man. I'm tougher. Sleeping on the floor is no big deal for me. Feeling his thoughtfulness, Jessica Smith's eyes brightened. She nodded gently, not refusing, her heart filled with quiet joy. All right then, I'm going to take a shower first. Jessica Smith finally let go of his hand and entered the bathroom. Go ahead. A few minutes later, the sound of running water echoed from the bathroom. Through the hazy, frosted glass door, the graceful silhouette within was faintly visible, flickering amidst the rising steam. Drawn by the sound, Ethan Thompson instinctively glanced over. Although he could only make out a vague outline, the figure's alluring curves were still quite captivating. As a divorced man, Ethan Thompson certainly wasn't going to stare like some inexperienced kid. So, after only a few moments, he quickly looked away. Staring any longer would be impolite. Half an hour later, the bathroom door opened, and Jessica emerged wrapped in a bath towel. Fresh from her shower, she smelled fragrant. Her scent was noticeable even from a distance. Ethan looked over and saw Jessica's fair, slender neck, delicate collarbones, and smooth, fragrant shoulders were completely exposed. Her skin, freshly cleansed, was white, smooth, and tender, as if water would bead if you pinched it. Below the towel, her small feet were slender and well-proportioned, long and straight. Her tiny feet were clad in white slippers, her small toes neatly aligned, delicate and refined, endearingly cute. I'm done. Do you want a shower? Jessica's cheeks were flushed, probably from the prolonged exposure to steam, like a ripe red apple, tempting someone to take a bite. Oh, okay. Ethan didn't linger his gaze. He brushed past her and headed towards the bathroom. Wait, I prepared pajamas and a fresh towel for you. I'll get them. Jessica stopped him, then took out a folded set of men's pajamas and a towel from the closet, handing them to Ethan. Thanks. Ethan looked at Jessica, like a lotus emerging from water, inhaling the rich fragrance in the air. For a moment, he was lost in thought. But, as someone who had been married, he quickly composed himself, simply nodded, and turned to enter the bathroom. A dozen minutes later, when Ethan came out of the bathroom, Jessica had changed into a rose-colored silk pajama set, standing gracefully by the bed, preparing to apply a face mask. At her feet, a makeshift bed had been arranged. She must have made it while Ethan was showering. Come try it. If you think it's too hard, I'll add another blanket. Jessica gently patted the mask on her face and spoke to Ethan. You already made it? Ethan had planned to do it himself, but Jessica hadn't given him the chance. Yeah, come try it quickly. Ethan walked over, sat on the makeshift bed, and tested its softness. How is it? Do you think it's too hard? Not hard. Ethan wasn't particularly fussy about where he slept. Jessica was probably worried about him getting cold, so she had put 2 blankets down for him, making it very soft. Ethan lay down, ready to rest. Beep beep. A ringtone suddenly sounded. Ethan picked up his phone. When he saw wife on the caller ID, he didn't hesitate and hung up directly. No sooner had he hung up than Sarah called again. Ethan frowned and hung up again. This time, he blocked her and then deleted her contact. There was no need to keep someone around who was no longer relevant. Who is it? Jessica's beautiful eyes looked over curiously. The next moment, her phone rang. When she saw Sarah Young's name, she felt inexplicably guilty. She took a deep breath before answering the call. Hello, Sarah Young, what's wrong? Jessica Smith asked Ethan Thompson why he won't answer my calls and even blocked me. I'm so angry. He's really rebelling. Sarah Young's voice was angry, her tone as bossy and superior as ever, as if she were still the Valley Girl princess Ethan Thompson used to dote on. Jessica Smith glanced at Ethan Thompson, who was expressionless, as if he didn't hear the voice on the phone. She casually replied, "I don't know. Given the phone, I want to ask him properly." Sarah Young was furious, seemingly in desperate need to vent her anger. In the past, Ethan Thompson would answer her calls instantly, but now he dared to hang up and block her. This was simply unbearable. "Oh, okay." Jessica Smith reluctantly handed the phone to Ethan Thompson. "Ethan Thompson, why won't you answer my calls?" Ethan Thompson frowned and retorted, "Why should I answer your calls?" "Why?" Sarah Young gritted her teeth in anger. "Ethan Thompson, I'm your wife. How dare you not answer my calls? Are you itching for a beating?" Ethan Thompson was speechless. "Sarah Young, we're divorced. Please get your facts straight. Okay? Stop harassing me." Harassing? Sarah Young was so angry she could barely breathe. After a few deep breaths, she patiently said, "Ethan Thompson, how many times do I have to tell you? It's just a trial separation. Are you deaf? I'm sorry, I've said it before. For me, divorced means divorced. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. Ethan Thompson, you—" Before Sarah Young could say anything else, Ethan Thompson hung up directly. They were divorced. Why should he indulge her? Did she still think she could order him around like before? Dream on. Ethan Thompson, you and her. Jessica Smith cautiously observed his expression, seeming to want to ask, but not daring to. "It's nothing, just divorced. It's normal." Ethan Thompson shook his head lightly. "Oh." Jessica Smith could tell that Ethan Thompson and Sarah Young seemed to have a conflict, and this conflict seemed to be caused by her. Before she could think further, her phone rang again. "Hello, Sarah Young." Jessica Smith answered the phone somewhat helplessly. "Jessica Smith, let me ask you, what are you doing with my husband?" On the other end of the phone, Sarah Young seemed to have calmed down a bit. She finally remembered the purpose of her call to Ethan Thompson, to check up on him. So this time, she didn't waste words and went straight to the point. "Ethan Thompson and I are getting ready to sleep." Jessica Smith answered truthfully. "Sleeping?" Sarah Young's voice clearly rose several octaves, becoming shrill. The anger she had barely suppressed surged up again. "No, Sarah Young, you've misunderstood. We're not sleeping together. I'm sleeping on the bed. He's sleeping on the floor." Jessica Smith quickly explained. "Oh, is that so? You scared me." Sarah Young let out a long sigh of relief. She and Jessica Smith had agreed long ago that during these 2 weeks, Jessica Smith could do intimate things with Ethan Thompson like holding hands and hugging, but she couldn't kiss him, let alone have sex. She was terrified when she heard Jessica Smith say they were going to sleep, but luckily it was a false alarm. However, she still seemed a bit uneasy and asked, "Jessica Smith, can we video chat? I want to see." "Okay." Jessica Smith couldn't refuse and nodded in agreement. So, they quickly started a video call. On the other end of the phone, Sarah Young didn't seem to be at home, but in a small toilet cubicle. Behind her, there was nothing but a toilet. "Sarah Young, where are you?" Jessica Smith asked curiously. Sarah Young replied with a slightly unnatural expression. I'm not shopping with friends. I'm in the Green Valley Mall restroom." "Oh." Jessica Smith nodded and didn't think much of it. "By the way, Jessica Smith, show me your room and my husband," Sarah Young requested. "Okay." Jessica Smith took the phone and recorded the entire room. Similarly, she also included Ethan Thompson lying on the makeshift bed. Seeing that they weren't sleeping together, Sarah Young was completely relieved, but seeing the spacious and luxurious room, she couldn't help but feel a little envious. "Jessica Smith, your room is so big. It's a pity my husband is useless and can only make me squeeze into a rented apartment with him. The room is so small and cramped. When will he be able to let me live in such a big house?" Jessica Smith frowned slightly when she heard this, her expression displeased. She glanced at Ethan Thompson lying on a makeshift bed and then said seriously, "Sarah Young, do you know that Ethan Thompson has been working very hard to give you a good life? He's already very tired. You should learn to understand his difficulties. Give me a break. If a man can't earn $50,000 a month, isn't he useless?" Sarah Young curled her lips, demeaning her husband. No, her ex-husband, as if it were only natural. Then she recalled her own situation and couldn't help but sigh. "Oh well, only I'm willing to live a hard life with him. Now he even dares to hang up on me. He doesn't know how to cherish me at all. Jessica Smith, please put in a good word for me." Jessica Smith rolled her eyes, seemingly unable to hold back any longer. She bluntly said, "Sarah Young, do you know that the hard life you think you're living may be the life that other women have always envied? Ethan Thompson is a good man. You should cherish him. You'll only push him further and further away like this. The hard life that Sarah Young was tired of was the life she had always longed for in the past 17 years. Sarah Young frowned, a little displeased. Jessica Smith, are you even my BFF? Whose side are you on? Jessica Smith was momentarily speechless, not knowing what to say. But then she saw Ethan Thompson suddenly sit up, grab her phone, hang up directly, and then throw the phone back to her. You. Jessica Smith was stunned. She was a little confused by his actions and didn't react for a moment. Some people are too noisy, don't you think? Ethan Thompson didn't seem to care and lay down again. Meanwhile, in a speakeasy bar restroom. Ethan Thompson, you jerk, how dare you hang up on me? Sarah Young roared hysterically, wishing she could smash the phone. But then she remembered that this phone was bought with Ethan Thompson's 2-week salary, which wasn't cheap, and she calmed down again. She took several deep breaths, and it took her a long time to calm down her inner emotions. It's just a trial separation, and you dare to give me attitude? You're getting too big for your boots, aren't you? Sarah Young patted her chest, and her mood improved a little. Forget it. For the sake of money, I won't bother with this jerk for now. I'll see how I deal with you after we remarry him. She took out a small mirror from her bag, touched up her makeup first, and then left the restroom. Sarah Young, what took you so long in the bathroom? Hurry up, everyone's waiting for you to drink. A heavily made-up woman suddenly came over. Sisters, I'm pregnant. I can't drink. What are you doing at a bar if you're not drinking? Never mind, dancing is fine. There's a super handsome young man who wanted to ask you to dance earlier. Outside, the night draped everything in a watery stillness, as if the entire world had fallen silent. The room was pitch black, lights out, utterly soundless. Ethan Thompson lay awake on the floor mattress, his gaze fixed on the dark ceiling. Jessica Smith lay on the soft, large bed, her bright, moist eyes blinking in the darkness, clearly wide awake too. What happened between you and her? Jessica Smith finally asked softly after a long silence. Judging by Ethan Thompson's earlier attitude toward Sarah Young, they seemed to be fighting, and somehow she fell involved. Nothing much. We just got divorced, Ethan Thompson replied calmly. He truly didn't care about Sarah Young anymore. Jessica Smith paused before asking softly, but wasn't it supposed to be a trial separation? As far as I'm concerned, divorced is divorced. Real or fake doesn't matter. We're completely finished, Ethan Thompson said flatly, as if discussing something trivial. Hearing this, Jessica Smith seemed taken aback. She turned her head on the bed to glance at Ethan Thompson on the floor. In the darkness, she could only make out the vague outline of his face, not his expression. She had assumed Ethan Thompson and Sarah Young had discussed it and mutually agreed to the divorce. But now it seemed that wasn't the case. It seemed Sarah Young had forced the divorce, and Ethan Thompson had completely lost faith in her. A flicker of happiness sparked within her at this thought, quickly followed by a wave of guilt. She was happy Ethan Thompson might not want to reconcile, that he wouldn't have to suffer that shrew's torment anymore. And maybe, just maybe, she might have a chance to be with him in the future. A real relationship, not like this current fake marriage. The guilt stemmed from feeling she had inadvertently broken up a marriage. As the old saying goes, it's better to tear down 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. Her upbringing had taught her that destroying someone else's family was wrong. I'm sorry, I thought you two had agreed. Jessica Smith sighed softly, a faint pang of regret stirring within her. Ethan Thompson, however, didn't blame Jessica Smith. The whole mess had started with Sarah Young's insatiable greed, her idea to lend her husband to Jessica Smith for money. She was the cause. Jessica Smith had only agreed because she thought they had both consented. She believed it was just a transaction they were all willing participants in. If Sarah Young hadn't proposed this insane plan in the first place, none of this would have happened. It has nothing to do with you. She proposed it. And actually, Ethan Thompson paused. I should thank you. Thank me. Jessica Smith blinked, surprised. Yes, thank you, Ethan Thompson said earnestly. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have found the resolve to divorce, wouldn't have seen her true colors. Looking back, I was such an idiot. Now, free from that suffocating marriage, Ethan Thompson could look back on it with detachment. He finally realized just how foolish he'd been, so blindly devoted to a woman like Sarah Young. Now he just wanted to scream at his past self. Jerk. Giving his heart to that woman was worse than feeding it to a dog. Hearing Ethan Thompson's words didn't quite make Jessica Smith happy. No matter who proposed it, she was still inextricably involved. But knowing Ethan Thompson had escaped that marriage, escaped a life that felt worse than a dog's, she suddenly felt it was worth it. Even if they divorced in 2 weeks, at least Ethan Thompson was free from that woman and that oppressive life. All right, let's sleep. It's late. Ethan Thompson felt drained and closed his eyes, ready for rest. Jessica Smith turned onto her side, gazing at Ethan Thompson's profile in the dim light. A few slivers of moonlight slipped through a gap in the curtains, casting a soft glow on his face. His handsome features were etched with fatigue. She watched the boy she had loved for 17 years. Recalling his earlier indifference towards Sarah Young, it was clear he truly didn't care anymore. How much pain must someone endure to become so utterly disillusioned? An inexplicable ache filled Jessica Smith's heart, and in that moment, any lingering guilt she felt towards Sarah Young evaporated. This was the boy she had cherished since childhood. How could Sarah Young hurt him like this? How could she treat a boy whose eyes had held only her with such cruelty? Ethan Thompson must be so devastated right now. At that moment, Jessica Smith's desire to make it up to Ethan Thompson, to heal him, intensified. The hurt my beloved boy suffered at another woman's hands. I will make up for it. I'll repay it 1,000, 10,000 times over. I will bring back that confident, sunny boy who loved to laugh. Jessica Smith vowed silently. 8:00 a.m. The morning sun climbed the sky. A few rays of sunlight slipped through the gap in the curtains, landing on Jessica Smith's sleeping face. Jessica Smith slowly opened her eyes. She stretched languidly in bed, starting to yawn before catching herself and quickly clamping her mouth shut. She eagerly rolled over, leaning over the edge of the bed to look at the boy sleeping on the floor mattress beside her. Ethan Thompson was still asleep, lying flat on his back, his breathing steady and even. He looked peaceful. Jessica Smith's mood instantly brightened, a soft smile involuntarily touching her delicate lips. It was still early, and she wasn't in a hurry to get up. Propping her cheek on one hand, she watched the sleeping Ethan Thompson with rapt attention. This is wonderful. If only I could wake up to this sight every day. Of course, it would be even better if he were sleeping in my bed. She continued gazing at him silently, unable to look away, a soft, almost dazed smile gracing her features. Until, suddenly, the sleeping Ethan Thompson's eyes snapped open. Sensing her gaze, he turned his head towards her. Jessica Smith, caught staring, startled, and quickly flopped back on her back, pretending she hadn't just been ogling him like a fool. But the blush staining her cheeks and the rapid thumping of her heart gave her away. All right, time to get up. Ethan Thompson threw off his blanket and sat up. He had, of course, noticed her watching him while he slept. He didn't read too much into it, though. After all, Jessica Smith had always sworn off marriage, never dated, and barely interacted with men. Now, suddenly married, she had a man sleeping in her room. It was natural for her to feel awkward. If the roles were reversed and a woman were suddenly sleeping in his room, he'd probably sneak a few glances upon waking up too. It wasn't strange, nothing worth dwelling on. You go first, Jessica Smith mumbled, unsure if it was embarrassment, shyness, or fear that he'd notice her blush. As soon as Ethan Thompson woke, she burrowed under the covers, her voice muffled and carrying a hint of morning grogginess. It was strangely endearing. Ethan Thompson paid her no mind, simply got up and headed into the in-soot bathroom to wash up. Hearing the bathroom door close, Jessica Smith slowly poked her head out from under the covers. Seeing that Ethan Thompson was truly gone, she let out a long sigh of relief. She touched her cheeks. They were burning hot. Definitely beet red. She felt her heart still pounding erratically. So embarrassing. You probably didn't think anything of it, right? Jessica Smith muttered, casting a nervous glance towards the bathroom door. A while later, by the time Ethan Thompson emerged from the bathroom, Jessica Smith had composed herself and was sitting up in bed, scrolling through her iPhone. Okay, I'm done. Bathroom's free, Ethan Thompson said. He had changed in his day clothes and washed up, looking much more refreshed. At least, the haggard look was gone. MHM. Jessica Smith put down her iPhone, slipped out of bed, and padded towards the bathroom in her slippers. Suddenly, she turned back, a bright smile on her face. Good morning. Ethan Thompson paused for a beat, taking in her stunningly beautiful face and radiant eyes. He returned the smile. Morning. Hearing his reply, her smile widened noticeably before she turned and happily disappeared into the bathroom. Soon, the sounds of running water echoed from within. While Jessica was getting ready, Ethan headed downstairs alone. Downstairs in the spacious living room, Robert Lewis, the head housekeeper, was briefing several other staff members on their duties for the day. When he saw Ethan coming downstairs, he offered a warm smile and greeted him. Morning, son-in-law. The other housekeepers also greeted Ethan with respectful bows. Morning, Robert. Ethan returned the smile. Judging by Jessica's clear respect for Robert, Ethan knew he should be polite as well. Then, Ethan sat alone on the sofa, idly scrolling through his iPhone. After a while, a housekeeper approached and asked if he'd like anything to drink. Ethan just requested warm water. Soon after, the housekeeper returned with a glass of warm water and placed it on the table in front of him. Ethan picked up the glass and had just taken a sip when he suddenly heard footsteps coming from upstairs. He instinctively glanced towards the stairs. Just one look and he froze. At the top of the stairs, Jessica appeared, gracefully descending in a flowing white floral maxi dress, her heels clicking crisply on the floor. With her long hair flowing freely, the white dress accentuated her sophisticated elegance while simultaneously giving her an ethereal, almost fairy-like aura. She had applied makeup, enhancing her already delicate features, making them appear more defined and highlighting her stunning beauty. At first glance, the effect was breathtaking. Ethan quickly looked away, though. He'd known her for years and was well acquainted with her beauty, but she still had the power to stun him every time he saw her. As Jessica reached the bottom of the stairs, her beautiful eyes were fixed solely on Ethan. When she saw the look of stunned admiration in his eyes, a smile couldn't help but bloom on her face. What girl wouldn't want to show her best side to the boy she liked? She was no exception. Besides, it was the first day of her marriage to Ethan. Dressing up nicely matched her mood, which was just as bright and beautiful. She quickly walked over to Ethan and sat down beside him on the sofa. Instantly, the scent of rose perfume washed over Ethan, insistently filling his senses. The fragrance was lovely, rich and sweet, strong without being overpowering, unique and captivating. Here, this is for you. Jessica held out a slender hand and placed a bank card in front of Ethan. This is... Ethan paused, stunned, turning to look at her exquisite face. There's $7. 25 million on this card. Take it and use it. $7. 25 million. Ethan was instantly floored. His eyes widened in disbelief. For a man like him, earning just over $10,000 a month and living on less than $1,000, $7. 25 million was an astronomical sum. He never imagined Jessica would casually hand him $7. 25 million. After all, his agreed-upon compensation for this fake marriage with Jessica was only $1 million. But now she'd given him $7. 25 million. Already more than 7 times his agreed payment. Yep, $7. 25 million. It's for you. Spend it however you like. If it's not enough, just tell me. Jessica confirmed with a slight nod. Her expression was serene. $7. 25 million truly wasn't a large sum to her. About enough to buy a new car. Wait, why are you giving me money? And so much. Ethan didn't understand. Jessica had already agreed on the payment. There was no reason for her to give him extra, especially not this much. $7. 25 million. More money than many people earn in their entire lives, and she was just handing it over. How could he not feel completely floored by this? Oh, think about it, Jessica said. We're husband and wife now, right? To make sure no one suspects we're faking it, it's perfectly reasonable for me to give you spending money, isn't it? Besides, you're my husband, Jessica's husband. $7. 25 million isn't that much in context, is it? Since they were the only ones downstairs at the moment, Jessica spoke plainly without much reservation. I guess not. Hearing her explanation, Ethan suddenly felt it did seem somewhat logical. Still, he found it hard to accept right away. But the agreed payment was only $1 million, giving me an extra $7. 25 million. It feels like I'm taking huge advantage of you. Don't think like that. You're Jessica's husband now, right? When you go out, you can't be pinching pennies like before. People might think I'm mistreating you, or worse, they might doubt our marriage is real. Don't you agree? Seeing Ethan's earnest, conflicted expression, Jessica felt a little exasperated inwardly. She simply wanted to use these 2 weeks to treat Ethan as well as she possibly could, to make up for everything 1,000 times over. She knew Ethan wouldn't be able to readily accept her kindness without feeling uneasy, so when she decided on the amount, she had already exercised considerable restraint. She had actually wanted to give him $10 million all at once, but she was afraid of shocking him, so she settled on $7. 25 million. Unexpectedly, it had still managed to shock him. Okay, fine. After listening to her patient explanation, Ethan reluctantly accepted the huge sum. He picked up his glass and quickly took a gulp of water to calm his nerves. All right, I also want to buy you a car. I'll get another $10 million later, and I'll go with you to pick one out, okay? Jessica suddenly added. Ethan nearly choked, almost spraying the water he'd just drunk. He whipped his head around to stare at Jessica's completely serious face. Wait, you want to spend another $10 million on me? Ethan was stunned all over again. Jessica, giving him $7. $25 million on top of the $1 million payment had already left him reeling, and now she instantly wanted to spend another $10 million on him. Wait, that was over $17 million altogether. Their entire fake marriage agreement was only for $1 million. He really wanted to crack open Jessica's skull and see what on earth was going on in her head. This was way too extravagant. Who makes a deal like this? Is there a problem with that? Jessica tilted her head, blinking her large, innocent eyes at him, looking completely matter-of-fact. Think about it. You're my husband now. Isn't it reasonable for me to buy you a car? Reasonable. And for someone with my kind of socialite lifestyle, buying a 10 million car is reasonable, right? Reasonable. So, tell me what's the problem? Well, what you're saying isn't wrong. I still feel like something's off. Ethan frowned, thinking hard, but couldn't pinpoint the issue. All right, stop overthinking. Just remember, I'm doing all this purely to convince everyone we're a loving newlywed couple, so I can secure the inheritance sooner. That's all. To help Ethan accept her generosity with a clear conscience, Jessica felt she had no choice but to bring up the inheritance as an excuse again. As long as Ethan believed she was being this generous solely for the sake of the inheritance, he wouldn't dwell on it so much. Okay, fine. Sure enough, hearing this, Ethan, though still hesitant, accepted her offer. After all, compared to an inheritance worth tens of billions, 17-odd million was practically pocket change. Seeing Ethan agree, Jessica inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. Getting Ethan to accept her kindness without feeling burdened really wasn't easy, she thought. But the thought that he had accepted her generosity made her happy nonetheless. After all, spending money on the person she liked, doing nice things for him. It felt genuinely wonderful. Oh, right. Jessica remembered something and was about to speak. But Ethan cut in first. Wait, you're not going to give me more money, are you? Oh, no, it's not that. Jessica found his panicked expression rather amusing and waved her hand dismissively. It's like this. The payment for our fake marriage is $1 million, right? I've already given Sarah Young $360. I was thinking, after these 2 weeks, I'll give her another $200, and the remaining $500 will go to you. Your relationship with her is quite strained at the moment. After all, Jessica knew Sarah Young's personality well. If the entire $1 million payment went to Sarah, Ethan would definitely see very little of it. Sarah would likely squander it all herself. The end result would be Ethan having gone through all this for nothing. This was something Jessica couldn't tolerate. Sarah Young exploiting Ethan in the past was bad enough, but Jessica wouldn't let her deprive Ethan of his rightful earnings this time. Isn't that still giving me money? Ethan sounded resigned. But thinking of that insatiably greedy woman, Sarah Young, his expression turned colder. You could just give Sarah Young the $200. You don't need to give me the $500. After all, you've already given me more than enough extra. But Jessica shook her head stubbornly. No, I have to give it to you. This is money you earned through hard work. Not a single cent less. It was 10 a.m., the sky clear and bright. Right after breakfast, Jessica pulled Ethan out the door. This time, neither of them drove. They had a driver accompany them. A black Maybach glided slowly out of the manor, navigating smoothly through the crowded streets. Ethan and Jessica sat close together in the back seat, so close that through their light clothing, they could feel each other's body heat. With every breath, Ethan caught the scent of her perfume. Jessica held his large hand, her fingers tightly intertwined with his, showing no intention of letting go. Ethan glanced at the driver in the front and decided not to say anything. Jessica, however, seemed to be in an excellent mood, a faint smile constantly playing on her delicate lips. She kept turning her head to look at him, the sheer joy in her eyes practically overflowing. Soon, the car arrived at a luxury car dealership. An attractive sales associate showed Ethan several high-end vehicles. Ethan found them all excessively expensive, while Jessica thought they were too cheap. In the end, unable to dissuade Jessica, Ethan bought a Rolls-Royce priced at nearly $9 million. Staring at the luxury car that was now his, Ethan's first feeling was one of unreality. Him, a jerk, actually owning such a car one day, it felt like a dream. Watching Ethan's back as he stood mesmerized before the Rolls-Royce, Jessica felt an immense sense of satisfaction. Thinking back on the miserable life Ethan had endured with Sarah Young, a life worse than a dog's, she couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Thankfully, she could now openly and rightfully treat him well. Then, let me make it up to him bit by bit. Let me dote on the boy I've loved for 17 years, Jessica thought, a fond, indulgent smile gracing her features. She walked over and stood beside Ethan. "Could you take me for a ride in your new car?" Jessica turned, looking at Ethan's handsome profile, and asked with a smile. "Oh, of course." Ethan snapped back to reality and immediately agreed. Although the car was technically his now, Jessica was the one who had paid for it. Subconsciously, he still felt the car belonged to her, not him. As Ethan settled into the driver's seat, feeling the soft upholstery, gazing at the luxurious, high-end interior, and sensing its unique quality, it was hard to believe this car was actually his. "Let's go," Jessica said, buckling her seatbelt in the passenger seat. "Okay." Ethan nodded. He took a deep breath, calming his racing heart, then started the engine. The car moved slowly out of the luxury car dealership and onto the street. Its distinctive engine roar immediately caused a stir. "Where do you want to go?" Ethan asked, turning to glance at the stunning girl beside him. "Let's go to Green Valley Mall. I want to buy a few things," Jessica replied without hesitation, seemingly having already decided. "All right." About 10 minutes later, Ethan drove into the underground parking garage of the nearby, massive Green Valley Mall. After parking, they took the elevator to the second floor and began shopping. Ethan initially assumed Jessica wanted to buy something for herself, but as they walked, he realized she seemed intent on buying things for him. Upon entering Green Valley Mall, she led him straight to several designer suit stores and began carefully selecting expensive suits for him. You're not planning on buying these for me, are you?" Ethan couldn't help but ask, watching Jessica continue her selection. "Yes, I am. What's wrong?" Jessica nodded, seeing nothing amiss. "No, you've already bought me too much," Ethan refused, shaking his head. The suits Jessica was picking out cost tens of thousands of dollars each, some even over $100,000. They were incredibly expensive. He felt he had already taken too much advantage of Jessica. Accepting more would be difficult to justify, and his conscience wouldn't allow it. Jessica sighed, feeling a bit helpless, and patiently explained, "Ethan, think about it. We're newlyweds, right? Isn't it reasonable for me to buy you clothes?" Reasonable," Ethan conceded after a moment's thought. Her logic wasn't flawed, yet he still couldn't accept her generosity with peace of mind. After considering, he said, "Then I'll pay later." Although he couldn't normally afford these suits, Jessica had just given him $25 million, which he could certainly use. "Come on, let me pay for this small amount. Don't argue with me." Jessica ignored him and continued choosing suits. A dozen minutes later, she had the sales associate wrap up the several suits she'd selected, totaling nearly $300,000. Ethan had his card ready, but Jessica stubbornly stopped him. Just like that, Ethan was once again forced to accept her kindness. Afterward, Jessica took him to buy several outfits for casual wear. While not as pricey as the suits, they weren't cheap either, each costing several $1,000s. Previously, Ethan wouldn't have dared even look at such items, let alone buy them. Ethan thought that would be enough to satisfy Jessica. Unexpectedly, she finished by buying him an iPhone worth around $30,000, finally seeming content, though perhaps still wanting to buy more. Ethan found himself laden with shopping bags, large and small. Every single item was something Jessica had bought for him. Not one thing was for herself. "Is it too much? Let me take some," Jessica said, turning back. Seeing both his hands full, she felt a pang of concern and offered to share the load. "You bought too much," Ethan sighed helplessly. "Not at all." Jessica looked up at him, a gentle smile on her face. Seeing her so happy and seemingly enjoying herself, Ethan felt an indescribable wave of emotion. During his 3 years of marriage to Sarah Young, he had grown accustomed to a financially strained life. Every Christmas, he had to prepare various gifts for Sarah Young. Yet, he had never received a single gift from her. When he accompanied her shopping, she never bought him anything. Her reasoning was always, "The meager salary you hand over isn't even enough for my expenses. You expect me to spend money on you? Have you no shame?" Ethan, who had never felt any care from Sarah Young, was now suddenly faced with Jessica, who treated him so well. Perhaps Jessica was only doing this for the inheritance, but it touched him deeply. In his heart, he felt that someone like him didn't deserve such kindness from a wonderful girl like Jessica. "Thank you," Ethan said, his Adam's apple bobbing as the words came out softly. You're welcome." Sensing the sincerity and gentleness in Ethan's gaze, Jessica shyly lowered her head, her voice catching slightly. Her cheeks flushed warm, and her eyes, fixed on the ground, sparkled brightly. The boy she had loved for 17 years was moved by her actions and thanking her so tenderly. At that moment, she felt an overwhelming sweetness bloom in her heart. In the afternoon, the two returned to the manor. Perhaps because of the warm weather, Jessica was a little sweaty. After getting back to the manor, she went upstairs to take a shower. Robert stood in the ground floor living room, watching his Mrs. retreating figure go upstairs, a fond, indulgent smile on his kind, elderly face. Only when Jessica disappeared at the top of the stairs did he withdraw his gaze and turn to Ethan, who was sitting on the sofa. "Son-in-law," Robert said warmly, "you must be tired after being out all day. I had the housekeeper prepare some fruit salad for you and miss. It's chilling in the fridge. I'll have a serving brought over for you shortly." He could tell that when his miss was with Ethan, she was genuinely happy, truly content. The kind of joy and contentment that came from the heart, impossible to fake. This deeply gratified him, making him even more pleased with Ethan, his son-in-law. "All right, thank you, Robert. No need to be polite, son-in-law." Robert smiled and turned to leave. A short while later, the housekeeper brought over a serving of fruit salad and some other desserts. After the housekeeper left, Ethan picked up a spoon and began to eat the fruit salad with relish. Suddenly, the iPhone in his pocket rang. Ethan took out his phone and glanced at the screen. It was a call from Alex, a close friend he regarded almost like a son. The two had grown up together and were very close, their bond like that of father and son. Realizing it had been quite a while since the guy had contacted him, he answered the call. "Hey, Ethan, free tonight? Want to grab a drink?" Alex's carefree voice came through as soon as the call connected. "Drinks?" Ethan hesitated, not agreeing immediately. "Don't tell me you're busy again. Is that shrew of yours keeping you locked up?" Alex scoffed, a look of disdain on his face. "Seriously, Ethan, a grown man scared of his wife like that. Do you know what they call you? Whipped. All right, enough rambling. Bottom line, are you coming out or not?" In the 3 years since Ethan got married, he'd barely gone out drinking or eating with his group of friends. Alex knew Ethan was completely under his wife's thumb at home. So, whether he could come out for drinks tonight depended entirely on Sarah's mood. If Sarah was in a good mood and felt generous, Ethan might be allowed out for a little get-together. If she was in a bad mood, Ethan would just have to stay home obediently. "Tonight, right? Send me the time and address later." Hearing the challenging tone in Alex's voice, Ethan's temper flared, and he immediately agreed. That Alex still thought he was the same pathetic whip guy he used to be. He was divorced now, no longer the perfectly devoted husband who never went out at night. "Whoa, agreeing so quickly this time. Did your wife go back to her parental home?" Alex paused, clearly surprised. Usually, whenever he asked Ethan out, Ethan would make all sorts of excuses. Having grown up together, Alex knew Ethan was actually just afraid of the shrew at home throwing a fit, which was why he never dared to go out. He hadn't expected Ethan to agree so readily this time. It was quite unexpected. "Cut the crap. Tonight, we don't go home till we're drunk." After hanging up, Ethan quickly received an iMessage from Alex. Just then, Jessica, having finished her shower, came downstairs and gently sat down beside him. I might need to go out tonight." Ethan thought for a moment and decided he should probably tell Jessica. After all, he was now Jessica's husband, at least in name. "Okay, go ahead then." Jessica nodded lightly, indicating she understood. This made Ethan pause, taken aback. He couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you going to ask what I'm doing?" Previously, every time he went out, he had to ask Sarah for permission. Sarah would always interrogate him relentlessly, and only after getting all the details, if she was in a good mood, might she allow him out. If she was in a bad mood, going out was forbidden. Jessica, agreeing so readily now, left him feeling momentarily unaccustomed to it. A trace of puzzlement appeared on Jessica's lovely face. "Why would I ask? If you're going out, you naturally have your reasons." Right? Ethan then realized. Not all women were like Sarah. Sarah would restrict him, but Jessica wouldn't. After thinking for a moment, he still answered honestly, "It's nothing much, really. A friend just invited me out for drinks." "Okay, I understand. Go ahead. Just call me if anything comes up." Jessica nodded lightly, a smile on her pretty face, without saying anything more. "All right then. I won't be home for dinner. You go ahead and eat." After a bit more small talk, Ethan stood up, ready to go upstairs for a shower. He was also quite sweaty after walking around outside all day in the heat. Jessica sat on the sofa, watching his back as he went upstairs until he disappeared at the top. Only then did she reluctantly pull her gaze away. "Miss, I had the housekeeper prepare fruit salad for you. It's in the fridge. I can have her bring it over now." Robert approached, speaking thoughtfully. "No need, Robert. I'll just eat this one." Jessica pointed to the half-eaten bowl of fruit salad Ethan had left on the table, shaking her head gently to decline his kind offer. "Miss, this one isn't cold anymore. Let me have the housekeeper get you a fresh, cold one from the fridge." Don't trouble yourself, Robert. Seeing her still refuse, Robert paused, clearly taken aback for a moment. But then, as if understanding something, he suddenly shook his head with a knowing chuckle and didn't press the matter further. Jessica picked up the spoon Ethan had used, scooped up the fruit from the bowl, and began eating with relish. The thought that Ethan had eaten from this very bowl brought an irrepressible smile to her lips. Watching his miss eat so happily, Robert shook his head resignedly, his gentle eyes full of fondness. 7 p.m. Night fell. The bustling streets were crowded and lively. "Boss, give me 1 grilled salmon, 2 orders of barbecue ribs, and 10 of these beef skewers." Inside a certain barbecue restaurant, Alex stood in front of the refrigerated display case, pointing at the skewers and placing his order. "You got it, handsome. You and your girlfriend go grab a seat. It'll be ready in a bit." The owner greeted the young couple warmly. "Okay, Emily, let's go sit down and wait. Ethan should be here soon." Alex led the girl beside him to a corner table. The girl, Emily, was his girlfriend of 3 months. "Alex, I always hear you talking about this Ethan, saying he's your buddy, but every time you ask him out, he never comes. Is he really your friend?" Emily pouted slightly, asking doubtfully. In the 3 months they'd been dating, she'd constantly heard Alex talk about the legendary Ethan, yet she'd never once met him. It made her doubt their supposed friendship. "Of course. We grew up together. We're ironclad brothers." Alex answered immediately, his tone leaving no room for doubt. He and Ethan had known each other since they were kids, running around naked, raided bird nests together, ate dirt together, watched those kinds of movies together, and even spied on old ladies bathing together. It was practically a brotherhood forged in the trenches. No one was allowed to question that bond. However, thinking about Ethan's marriage, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. It's just that, since he got married, that wife of his keeps him on way too tight a leash. That's why he can barely ever come out at night anymore. "Oh, so he's whipped?" Emily chuckled lightly. "Yeah, totally whipped. Seriously whipped. If his wife says jump, he asks how high. If she points east, he wouldn't dare look west. If she told him to catch a duck, he wouldn't dare grab a chicken." "Oh, stop exaggerating." "No, really. Speaking of which, these past 3 years of marriage have been pretty rough for him. His wife spends money like water, and his monthly allowance is less than $1,000. At this point, Alex quickly added a warning. "Oh yeah, later, we absolutely cannot let him pay. With his tiny allowance, this barbecue feast would wipe out half of it." "Okay, got it." Just then, Alex's phone, lying on the table, started ringing. "Hey, Ethan, are you here?" Alex saw it was Ethan and immediately answered the call. "Hey, Alex, I'm here, but where's that barbecue restaurant you mentioned? I don't see it." On the other end of the line, Ethan had just parked his newly bought Rolls-Royce by the roadside, but couldn't see the barbecue place Alex had described, so he called him. "Really? Okay, stay right where you are. I'll come out and find you." Inside the barbecue restaurant, Alex stood up and headed for the entrance. "Wait for me. I want to see this poor, suffering friend of yours too." Emily quickly got up and eagerly tagged along behind him. It was 7 p.m., and the bustling street glowed under bright lights, alive with activity. Alex and Emily stepped out of the barbecue restaurant, scanning the crowded sidewalk, but there was no sign of Ethan. Alex raised the phone he hadn't hung up yet, asking with puzzlement, "Ethan, are you sure you're in the right place? I don't see you outside the barbecue restaurant." Just then, Emily tugged his sleeve. "Alex, look, that guy in the Rolls-Royce. Could that be your buddy, Ethan?" She pointed down the street where a Rolls-Royce was parked. Such a luxurious car looked incredibly conspicuous on this slightly run-down street. It was already drawing stares and probably ending up on social media. The handsome man inside happened to be on his phone right then. Her first thought was that this might be the legendary Ethan. A Rolls-Royce? Seriously, Emily? His monthly allowance isn't even. Alex started to say that Ethan was totally whipped, living on less than $1,000 a month, driving some modest family car. A Rolls-Royce? That couldn't possibly be connected to Ethan. Still, he glanced subconsciously towards the car. But when he got a clear look at the driver, the words died in his throat. He swallowed hard. He had to admit, maybe he'd spoken a little too loudly. Wasn't that his brother Ethan in the Rolls-Royce, the one he'd been through thick and thin with? No way. How the hell did he get a Rolls-Royce? WTF? Alex was completely floored. Hearing Alex's initial dismissal, Emily had also started to reconsider. Right? Alex had described Ethan as just a whipped guy living on less than $1,000. How could he possibly drive a Rolls-Royce? She must have been mistaken. But just as that thought crossed her mind, Alex beside her suddenly yelled, "WTF!" with a look of dumbfounded shock. Then, Alex started walking towards the Rolls-Royce. A series of question marks popped into Emily's head. Didn't he just say that wasn't Ethan? Why are you going over there? The next moment, she saw the handsome man get out of the Rolls-Royce, walk up to Alex, and pull him into a big hug, greeting him with a loud "my boy." This left Emily completely baffled. Wait, so does Ethan? Meanwhile, seeing Alex's stunned expression, Ethan visibly relaxed. Man, I almost thought I was in the wrong place. Never been down this street before, and the sign for this barbecue place you mentioned is tiny. I missed it earlier. Ethan, this car, is it rented? Alex's attention was now entirely fixed on the Rolls-Royce behind him, his gaze slightly glazed over as he asked uncertainly. Rented? Nah, just bought it. See? Doesn't even have plates yet, Ethan said with a helpless shrug. Bought it? Alex lost his cool. If it was rented, that would be somewhat understandable, acceptable even. But bought? He absolutely couldn't accept that. Given Ethan's situation, even if he didn't eat or drink and work for decades, he probably couldn't afford this car. All right, let's head inside and talk, Ethan said, slinging an arm around Alex's shoulder and walking back towards the barbecue restaurant. Emily dazedly followed them back inside. Back in the restaurant, the owner was placing freshly grilled skewers and grilled salmon on their table. As the three sat down, Ethan finally noticed Emily, who had followed them in. He looked curiously at Alex. And this is... Oh, I'm his girlfriend, Emily. Nice to meet you. Emily quickly introduced herself, looking at this supposedly whipped guy, finding it increasingly unbelievable. She noticed Ethan's clothes were all designer brands, and the watch on his wrist was a Vacheron Constantine, worth over $30,000. Combined with the Rolls-Royce parked outside, it created a jarring contrast in her mind, because according to the picture Alex had painted, Ethan was just a whipped guy living on less than $1,000 a month. But here he was, rolling up in a Rolls-Royce. Who wouldn't be shocked? Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan. Alex and I grew up together. Ethan nodded politely. At this point, Alex finally seemed to process things. He asked, bewildered, Ethan, it's only been a few months. How did you end up with a Rolls-Royce? Before today, he'd always felt sympathy for Ethan. After all, saddled with a wife like that, his life had seemed so miserable. But now he felt a strange sense of imbalance. Damn it, we're brothers, and you secretly got yourself a Rolls-Royce. What's that saying? You worry when your bro's struggling, but you also get jealous when he starts driving a Range Rover. And Ethan wasn't just driving a Range Rover. This was a Rolls-Royce. However, hearing this, Ethan suddenly put down his chopsticks, looking unhappy. He sighed, it's nothing. Got divorced. Divorced? Alex and Emily were both taken aback. Yeah, divorced. Just yesterday. Ethan nodded. Then this car. Alex hesitated, wanting to ask what the divorce had to do with the car. Surely he didn't get a Rolls-Royce in the divorce settlement. He knew Ethan's financial situation inside out. Well, actually, I got married again yesterday, Ethan added, shifting gears completely. Married? Alex and Emily stared, their faces etched with disbelief. Divorced yesterday, married yesterday. Wait, does that even make sense? Neither of them could comprehend it. Their brains couldn't keep up. Ethan looked at them helplessly, aware that the amount of information in those two short sentences was a bit much for them to process immediately. He poured himself a glass of beer and, sipping it, began to recount the events of the past couple of days. So my wife. No, my ex-wife has this BFF. A long while later, by the time Ethan had laid out the whole sequence of events, Alex and Emily were listening, completely dumbfounded and utterly shocked. So you're saying your wife lent you to her BFF to marry for $1 million, and this BFF is some rich Valley girl type who bought you this Rolls-Royce? Alex asked, amazed. He couldn't believe something so insane had happened to his own brother. You wouldn't even see this script in a TV drama. That's about right, Ethan nodded. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, Emily couldn't help exclaiming. Ethan chuckled wryly. Tell me about it. Even I, the guy it happened to, still find it unbelievable. Although it had happened yesterday, he still felt disoriented. After all, suddenly swapping wives. No one could adjust to that overnight, right? Ethan certainly wasn't that laid back. He was still trying to adjust. After a long while, Alex and Emily had finally processed everything that had happened with Ethan. Ethan, what are you thinking now? Are you still going to remarry Sarah in 2 weeks? Alex asked curiously, taking a sip of his beer. Emily, munching on barbecue skewers, watched the two men chat with keen interest. Her curiosity was thoroughly piqued. She hadn't heard such juicy gossip in ages. Ethan put down his glass and gently shook his head. No, she divorced me for money this time. I see her clearly now. There's no way I could ever get back with her. Yeah, honestly, I didn't want you to remarry her either, Alex said bluntly. Ethan, don't mind me saying this, but I've always wanted to tell you, that marriage was never right for you. You loved her too much back then, lived too humbly. And frankly, I never saw any sign that Sarah liked you even a little bit. Alex finished speaking, picked up a crispy, tender barbecue rib, took a bite and savored it. Yeah, those 3 years. I'd had enough. Now that it's over, I feel so relieved, so free. Ethan sighed, downing his drink in one go. His previous marriage had felt like being crushed in a bottomless abyss, suffocating him. Every day had been exhausting. Now, suddenly without Sarah in his life, he felt lighter than ever before. Right, so what's your new wife like? She's Sarah's BFF, right? She's not like Sarah too, is she? Alex's curiosity about Ethan's new wife grew. After all, he didn't have a good impression of Sarah. Subconsciously, he assumed anyone who could be Sarah's BFF must be cut from the same cloth. No. Ethan shook his head firmly, his voice softening. Jessica is wonderful. She's nothing like Sarah. She's considerate, gentle, understanding, mature, sensible. Whoa, is she really as great as you say? Alex was surprised. Such an outstanding girl, and a billionaire Valley girl at that, was now Ethan's wife. Alex couldn't help but tease. Ethan, you hit the jackpot. If you ask me, don't divorce her in 2 weeks. Just stay married to her. Ethan shot him a look. You're overthinking it. She doesn't believe in marriage. She only married me to fulfill her grandfather's will. Okay. Alex shook his head with slight regret. That's a shame. But then again, I guess if she wasn't doing it for the inheritance, a guy like you wouldn't get such a lucky break, huh? Exactly. So right now, I just want to play my part in this fake marriage, help her get the inheritance, and then make my exit once my job is done. Ethan was self-aware. He was just a divorce guy, a total mess. Jessica, on the other hand, was a genuine Valley girl, beautiful and exceptional. How could such a wonderful girl possibly end up with him for real? So, he harbored no illusions. He just wanted to dutifully play the role of husband and cooperate so they wouldn't blow their cover. Perhaps because Ethan and Alex hadn't gotten together for drinks in so long. Once they started talking, they couldn't stop. The conversation eventually circled back to Ethan's previous marriage. It seemed Ethan had bottled up too many emotions during that time, and now, fueled by the alcohol, it was all pouring out. Seeing the two men drinking more and more, getting increasingly tipsy, Emily couldn't help but intervene. Okay, that's enough, Ethan. If you go home drunk later, won't your wife be worried? Ethan, who didn't seem to hold his liquor well, was already looking quite drunk. He shook his head. You're thinking too much. It's just a fake marriage. She doesn't like me. Why would she worry? If I get too drunk, I'll just find a Holiday Inn, get a room, and sleep it off. I can go back tomorrow. As his best friend, Alex could see Ethan was deliberately drowning his sorrows and needed to vent. So he stopped Emily from saying more. It's okay, Emily, don't stop him. Just let him drink. He hasn't had a chance to really let loose like this in a long time. Alex sighed, looking at Ethan with a touch of sympathy. All right, Emily didn't push further. Time slipped by quietly. Soon, it was 11 p.m. At the barbecue restaurant, Ethan and Alex were thoroughly enjoying their drinks and conversation. Meanwhile, back at the manor, in the spacious, brightly lit first-floor living room, Jessica sat on the sofa, idly watching a movie on her tablet. However, her attention wasn't really on the screen. She kept glancing up at the night outside the window, seeming distracted. Miss, it's getting late. You should get some rest. Robert had appeared beside her at some point and gently reminded her. Jessica pulled her gaze from the window and looked back at Robert, biting her lip slightly. Robert, has the son-in-law not returned yet? Robert shook his head slightly. No, miss. The son-in-law is likely still out with his friends. You should rest first. He will return on his own. A flicker of disappointment crossed Jessica's eyes, but she managed a faint smile. Robert, you go rest first. I'm not tired yet. I want to watch the movie a bit longer. Sigh, very well. Robert looked at her, didn't say anything more, and turned to leave. Before leaving the room, he glanced back at Jessica, who was now yawning on the sofa. He shook his head gently and sighed. His eyes held a mix of helplessness and sympathy. He should be back soon. Jessica raised her wrist, checked the time on her iPhone, then picked up her tablet again to watch the movie. As she watched, she started feeling drowsy. Her eyelids grew heavier and heavier. Ring, ring. After some time, the sudden ringing of a phone shattered the manor silence. Ethan. Jessica instantly woke up, quickly grabbing the iPhone from the table, looking at the screen expectantly. However, when she saw the caller ID wasn't Ethan, she slumped back onto the sofa in disappointment. Laura, it's you, Jessica answered, disappointment evident in her voice. The caller was one of her close friends, named Laura Miller. They had been roommates in college, and since they lived in the same city, they often hung out together over the years. Jessica, you sound kind of disappointed. What? Not happy to get my call? Laura asked, sounding slightly miffed. No, of course not. Jessica forced a smile and quickly changed the subject. Anyway, Laura, calling so late, is something up? Yeah, there is. Jessica, are you free anytime soon? Want to go on a world tour with me? A world tour? Oh, I can't go. Can't go? Why not? What's going on? Laura asked curiously. I need to stay home and accompany my husband. Your husband? On the other end of the line, Laura's voice shot up several octaves, as if she'd heard something unbelievable. That's right, I got married. Jessica couldn't help but feel happy thinking about being Ethan's wife now. But aren't you against marriage? When did you get married? Laura was incredulous. Just yesterday. Look, it's a long story, hard to explain over the phone. I'll tell you in person next time we meet. Okay. Jessica seemed eager to end the call, not wanting to get into a deep conversation. All right then. Next time, you have to bring your husband, so I can meet him. I need to see who managed to change the mind of Jessica, the woman who never wanted to marry. Okay. I'll let you go then. Jessica hung up. She then opened WhatsApp. Seeing no iMessage from Ethan, she sighed softly. The reason she'd been so quick to hang up was the fear that Ethan might try calling her while she was on the phone with Laura and wouldn't be able to get through. It's so late already. Why isn't he back yet? Jessica held her iPhone, wanting badly to call Ethan, but afraid of interrupting him and possibly spoiling his fun. I'll wait a little longer. I'll call him if he's not back by midnight. Calling him that late would be perfectly reasonable. She picked up her tablet again, pretending to watch the movie, but her eyes weren't on the screen. Instead, she kept glancing towards a window. It was midnight, and the streets were deserted. Inside the barbecue restaurant, Ethan was already pretty out of it, slumped in his chair with his head hanging low, looking half asleep. Alex, you'll have to carry him. Let's find a Holiday Inn nearby for him to crash in, Emily said, dabbing the corners of her mouth with a napkin and turning to Alex, who was still sober. Ethan was clearly in no condition to walk on his own. Okay, I got it. Alex nodded, agreeing without hesitation. He could tell Ethan was deliberately drowning his sorrows and needed to vent, so he stopped Emily from saying more. Beep, beep. Just then, Ethan's phone, which was on the table, suddenly rang. Alex glanced at the inebriated Ethan, then picked up his phone. He looked down at the caller ID, and when he saw the name Jessica with a note, he paused for a moment, then realized this was Ethan's new wife. Hello. Alex answered, his tone very polite. Hello, is Ethan with you? A soft, gentle voice came from the phone, laced with concern. Alex looked at Ethan and answered truthfully, He's with me. He's drunk and can't answer the phone right now. Drunk? Jessica gently bit her lip, then eagerly asked, Where are you guys? I'll come pick him up. Oh, okay. We're at the Sunrise Avenue Barbecue Shack. Okay, please take care of him for me. I'll be right there. After hanging up, Alex turned to his girlfriend, Emily, looking puzzled. It feels like Ethan's wife is really worried about him. Not like how Ethan described it, just a trial separation. Alex scratched his head, a little confused. Yeah, I heard it too. Her voice sounded really anxious, like she was afraid something might happen to Ethan. Emily nodded in agreement. She was sitting next to Alex and had naturally heard the conversation. They didn't have to wait long. About 15 minutes later, a Bentley pulled up in front of the barbecue restaurant. The door opened, and a stunningly beautiful girl stepped out. The girl was tall and slender, with a head of voluminous hair cascading over her shoulders, gently swaying in the night breeze. Her delicate oval face had flawless, creamy skin and exquisite features. Her breathtaking beauty was like that of a woman from a painting, beautiful to the point of being suffocating. After getting out of the car, the girl walked straight into the restaurant, looking very anxious. Behind her were two men in suits, security personnel, who also entered the barbecue restaurant. A beautiful girl radiating wealth, accompanied by security personnel. The spectacle drew curious glances from everyone in the restaurant, especially when they saw the stunning girl. Everyone's face showed the same expression of amazement. What a beautiful girl. That was everyone's first thought. However, at this moment, the girl seemed oblivious to everyone in the restaurant. As soon as she entered, her big, watery eyes locked onto a man passed out in the corner. Then, she hurried towards the corner with a look of urgency. Ethan, Jessica reached Ethan's side and immediately cradled his face with concern. Looking at Ethan's flushed cheeks from the alcohol, her heartache was almost palpable. How are you, Ethan? Are you feeling unwell? Jessica sat down beside Ethan and put her arms around him. Alex and Emily, sitting across the table, were finally brought back to reality from their shock as they looked at the unreasonably beautiful girl in front of them, and the two security personnel standing next to her like telephone poles. This must be Ethan's new wife. She's so beautiful, and she even has security personnel with her, She's definitely rich. That was Alex's thought, and Emily's was pretty much the same. Hello, you must be Ethan's wife. I'm his friend. My name is Alex. Alex stood up and introduced himself politely. I'm Emily, his girlfriend. Oh, hello. Jessica glanced at them and nodded slightly. Thank you for looking after Ethan. Did he drink a lot? Is he going to be okay? Don't worry. He's just drunk. He'll be fine. He just needs to sleep it off, Alex said with a smile. Oh, thank you. No problem. Jessica continued to look at Ethan in her arms. Although Alex said he was fine, the worry in her eyes didn't diminish in the slightest. Ugh. Just then, Ethan couldn't hold it in anymore, broke free from her embrace, and, holding onto the table, buried his head and threw up. Instantly, a foul odor filled the air, making people want to gag. Alex and Emily instinctively took a step back, afraid that Ethan's vomit would splash on them. However, they noticed that when Ethan threw up, Jessica didn't shy away, but instead leaned in closer. She raised a delicate hand and gently patted Ethan's back, while the other hand held his arm to prevent him from falling over completely. She didn't seem to care at all that Ethan had thrown up on her shoes and splashed on her pants. She just pursed her lips, her eyes filled with even more worry. Go get a bottle of water. Jessica suddenly turned her head and quickly ordered one of the security personnel. The security personnel quickly brought a bottle of water, opened the cap, and handed it to his young miss. Jessica took the water, embraced Ethan, and said softly, Ethan, here, drink some water. It'll make you feel better. As she spoke, she slowly poured the mineral water into Ethan's mouth. After drinking the water, Ethan seemed to feel a little better and obediently lay in her arms. Jessica put down the water, then pulled out a tissue and patiently wiped Ethan's mouth. Her movements were very gentle, very careful, as if she was afraid of hurting Ethan. After doing all this, Jessica finally turned to the two security personnel and instructed, You two, carry him to the car. Yes, miss. The two security personnel carefully supported Ethan, while Jessica stood to the side, watching their every move with concern, while also constantly observing Ethan's condition. Be careful, don't hurt him, yes, slowly, gently. Under Jessica's watchful eye, Ethan was carried out of the barbecue restaurant and gently placed in the car. Seeing this, Jessica finally breathed a long sigh of relief. She walked back into the restaurant, instructed a security personnel to pay the bill. Then, she came to Alex and Emily with an apologetic expression and said, I'm sorry, my husband caused you trouble. I'm so sorry. It's okay. Alex and Emily shook their heads in unison. Then I'll leave first. The bill's been paid. Maybe we'll meet again sometime. After saying goodbye, Jessica didn't linger, turned and left the barbecue restaurant and got into the car. Let's go, we should head back too. Inside the barbecue restaurant, Alex glanced at the clock on the wall. It was already late. He took Emily's hand, and they left the restaurant too. The streets at midnight were deserted. There was hardly anyone around. Alex, Ethan said his new wife is against marriage, right? As they walked slowly down the empty street, Emily suddenly turned to look at his profile and asked, Yeah, he did say that. Alex recalled, then nodded. So, do you think she, his wife, is really against marriage? Emily asked again. Well, I guess so. Alex scratched his head, answering uncertainly. I don't think so. Emily disagreed. Why do you say that? Alex raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Didn't you see? The moment she walked into the barbecue restaurant, she only had eyes for Ethan. The way she looked at him, her expression, she looked like her heart ached for him. Also, when Ethan was throwing up, none of us could hide our disgust. Even those two security personnel took a step back. But she went right up to him, not caring if he might throw up on her, only worried about whether he was feeling awful. Didn't you see how much she ached for him then? Emily recounted the scene as they walked. Based on how Jessica acted just now, she didn't seem like someone against marriage at all. Are you saying Ethan's new wife isn't against marriage? Alex stopped walking, frowning as he looked at his girlfriend. Yes. Emily nodded, sharing her thoughts. I don't just think she's not against marriage. I think she likes Ethan, and not just a little, like really, really likes him. Really? Alex looked slightly stunned, finding it hard to believe. No way. Ethan's new wife is his ex-wife's BFF. Alex felt like things were getting wild again. Emily frowned, thought for a moment, then said seriously, Alex, a woman's intuition is usually spot on. And besides, when someone likes another person, it's really obvious. Dan, no way. For some reason, Alex suddenly felt a strange excitement bubbling up. He felt like things were getting more and more interesting. But then again, he immediately thought it was unlikely. After all, Jessica was Sarah's BFF, and Ethan had mentioned beforehand that Jessica didn't believe in marriage. They were just in a trial separation, all to fulfill the terms of a will. Emily hesitated for a moment, then said, Alex, do you think it's possible that Jessica has actually liked Ethan for a long time? But, Ethan was already married. Because she couldn't be with him, maybe that's why she claimed she was against marriage. Damn, that's a bold theory. I think you could be a scriptwriter. Alex was taken aback, stunned by her speculation. Alex, I'm serious. Think about it. If she didn't like Ethan, when she needed to find someone to marry to fulfill the will, why would she choose Ethan? Remember, Ethan was already married, someone with her status. And, as beautiful as she is, what kind of man couldn't she find? Why specifically Ethan? Also, they're just in a trial separation, and the supposed payment was only $360, but she bought Ethan a Rolls-Royce worth nearly $10 million. Don't you think that doesn't add up? Emily's barrage of questions left Alex looking completely bewildered, unable to process it all. Alex scratched his head. He felt like his brain was about to overload. His girlfriend had suddenly turned into Sherlock Holmes. Her reasoning was logical and convincing. It was hard not to believe her. So, based on what you're saying, Sarah offering Ethan to Jessica this time basically just handed him over to her on a silver platter? Alex asked. From how things look now, yes. Sarah might have just shot herself in the foot. Emily nodded. Holy crap. The plot can actually twist like this? Ethan, that lucky bastard. Not only did he get rid of Sarah, but he also married such a beautiful rich woman. He's hit the jackpot. Alex couldn't help but get excited. Seeing his buddy's situation improve, he couldn't help but feel happy for him. However, Emily's next words immediately poured cold water on his excitement. But don't get too happy just yet. Right now, this is all just my speculation. How things really are. We're just outsiders. We don't really know. Alex immediately felt deflated. He rolled his eyes at her and pouted. Teasing, you talk all this time, and then end with it's all just my guess? Wasn't that just a load of pointless talk? So lame. Alex shook his head, finding it pointless, and quickened his pace towards home. Hey, wait for me. In the car, one of the security personnel sat in the driver's seat, focusing on driving, leaving the entire backseat for their young mistress and her husband. Through the rearview mirror, the unconscious Ethan could be seen lying sideways on the back seat, his head pillowed on Jessica's lap. Jessica gently caressed Ethan's face, her eyes soft as water, her expression still full of ache for him. Suddenly, the car hit a bump. The sleeping Ethan immediately frowned, seeming uncomfortable. Drive slower. Jessica immediately looked up and told the security personnel. Yes, miss. The security personnel nodded, reluctantly slowing down the already moderate speed. Late at night, on the straight, deserted road, a Bentley drove slowly, leisurely, at just over 20 miles per hour. A Rolls-Royce followed slowly behind, driven by the other security personnel, taking Ethan's car back to the manor. 10 minutes or so later, the two cars drove into the manor ground one after the other, stopping in front of the main house. Carry him to my room. Be careful, don't hurt him. After getting out of the car, Jessica stood nearby, watching intently the entire time, afraid the two security personnel might hurt her Ethan. Soon, the security personnel carried Ethan into the manor, went up to the second floor, and gently placed him on the soft, large bed. Jessica followed beside them the whole time, constantly checking on Ethan's condition. Now, seeing Ethan lying on the bed, she finally relaxed slightly. All right, go ask the housekeeper to make a Bloody Mary and bring it up. Jessica suddenly looked up and instructed the two security personnel. Understood, miss. The two security personnel nodded and withdrew. Instantly, only Ethan and Jessica were left in the room. Jessica turned and went to the bathroom to fetch a basin of hot water. She soaked a towel, wrung it out, and gently began to wipe Ethan's face. Looking at his sleeping face, she puffed out her cheeks and couldn't help but mutter. Drinking so much, is alcohol really that good? Coming home so late, making people worry so much. Though she was complaining, her tone was full of concern. After wiping Ethan's face, she wiped his neck and hands. Throughout the entire process, her movements were light and gentle. Miss, Bloody Mary is here. A knock sounded on the door, and the housekeeper's voice came in. The door's unlocked. Come in, Jessica said softly, turning her head. Yes, miss. Soon, the housekeeper came in carrying a freshly made Bloody Mary. Jessica sat on the edge of the bed, propped Ethan up against her chest, and took the Bloody Mary from the housekeeper, planning to feed it to Ethan herself. She scooped up a spoonful, blew on it gently at her lips, and then tasted it to make sure it wasn't too hot before slowly feeding it into Ethan's mouth. A few minutes later, Jessica handed the bowl back to the housekeeper. Okay, you're tired too. Go and rest. Yes, miss. After the housekeeper left, Jessica gently laid Ethan back down, stood up, and rubbed her aching shoulders and arms, looking at the man on the bed with a helpless expression. So tiring. Taking care of someone is so difficult. Oh well, it's because you're my husband. Jessica smiled softly, not impatient at all, but rather seeming to enjoy it. Then, she knelt down and took off Ethan's shoes before pulling the blanket over him. Having done all this, she sat on the edge of the bed and let out a long sigh of relief. Looking at the sleeping Ethan, she felt a sense of peace and security in her heart. All right, I'll go wash up too. Jessica got up and went into the bathroom to take a shower. 15 minutes later, Jessica came out. Because Ethan was asleep, she didn't deliberately avoid him and changed into her pajamas by the bed. She glanced at the time. It was already 1:30 in the morning. At this moment, Jessica felt a strong wave of sleepiness washing over her, making her yawn involuntarily. Usually, she would have been fast asleep by this time. Looking at Ethan, who was already sound asleep in bed, she suddenly bit her lip, her expression hesitant. It's so late, maybe I won't make a bed on the floor. He won't know anyway, and I just have to get up before he wakes up tomorrow, and I could do it without him noticing. Jessica really didn't want to make a bed on the floor, not because it was troublesome, but because she felt like this was such a good opportunity. She could take advantage of Ethan being unconscious and secretly sleep in the same bed as him, sharing the same pillow. If she missed such a good opportunity, she might never have it again. This was the boy she had liked for 17 years. If she could share a bed with him like a husband and wife, even if Ethan left her in 2 weeks, she would be content. Yeah, a chance like this doesn't come twice. Jessica, don't be a coward. Go for it. Jessica took a deep breath and cheered herself on. Then, she mustered her courage and went to the bed, carefully lifted a corner of the blanket, and laid down gently with a trembling heart. From beginning to end, she observed Ethan, as if afraid he would suddenly wake up. Only when she was completely lying down did the uneasy feeling in her heart gradually subside. She let out a soft breath and turned to look at Ethan sleeping soundly beside her, the corners of her mouth involuntarily curving into a smile. Good night. The next day, 10 in the morning. In the room, on the soft bed, Ethan rubbed his eyes and slowly woke up. Sitting up in bed, he was stunned when he saw the environment of the entire room. Looking at this familiar room, he immediately realized that he wasn't in some Holiday Inn room, but back in Jessica's room. How did I get back? Ethan scratched his head, feeling confused. And I slept in Jessica's bed last night. Logically speaking, after he got drunk last night, Alex should have taken him to a Holiday Inn and booked a room for him, or Alex would take him back to their rental house. He didn't expect that when he woke up, he not only returned to the manor, but also slept in Jessica's bed. Never mind, I can't figure it out. I'll ask Jessica later. Ethan's head was still a little dizzy, so he didn't think too much about it. He pulled back the blanket, got out of bed, and went to the bathroom to wash up. 30 minutes later, Ethan had changed into a clean set of clothes, opened the door, and went downstairs. Jessica was sitting on the sofa, browsing social media boredly. Hearing the sound of footsteps coming from upstairs, she immediately looked up, a happy smile on her face. You're awake? Jessica stood up and greeted him with a smile. Yeah, I'm awake, Ethan nodded. Do you still feel uncomfortable now? Do you want to go to the hospital to get checked out? Jessica asked softly, her eyes showing concern. No, I just got drunk. It's nothing, Ethan said with a smile, indicating that he was really fine. Oh, then I'll have the housekeeper bring up breakfast. You must be hungry. Okay, thank you. Soon, the housekeeper brought up a sumptuous breakfast, and Ethan and Jessica sat down opposite each other to eat together. You haven't eaten yet? Ethan was stunned for a moment, looking at Jessica, who was eating breakfast in small bites. It was almost 11 o'clock already. Under normal circumstances, it was almost time for lunch. Son-in-law, Miss has been waiting until now to have breakfast with you. The housekeeper, who was standing by the dining table, answered his question before Jessica could say anything. I wasn't hungry just now, so I just waited to eat with you, Jessica said with a gentle smile, explaining. Oh, I see. Ethan nodded. Then he suddenly remembered something, looked up at the stunningly beautiful girl sitting opposite him, and asked curiously, By the way, did you pick me up last night? Oh, right, I did, Jessica nodded, then explained. I was watching Instagram Reels very late last night, and when I saw you hadn't come back yet, I wanted to call you and ask if you were coming back. Then your friend told me you were drunk, and I just happened to have nothing to do, so I went to pick you up. Oh, I see. Thank you. Ethan didn't think too much about it, just felt like he had troubled Jessica a bit. He thought that after he got drunk, he would at most find a Holiday Inn to stay in for the night, and never thought of troubling Jessica. He also didn't expect that Jessica would happen to have nothing to do and pick him up. Ethan realized that he had troubled the girl, and he suddenly felt a little bad about it. It's okay, no need to thank me. We're husband and wife. Husband, Jessica gestured with her eyes at the two housekeepers standing by the dining table, reminding him not to be too polite. After all, they were now husband and wife. Ethan understood and said with a smile, "It's troublesome for my wife to work so hard. Of course I have to thank you." Yeah. Then husband, please call me next time you're about to get drunk, okay? I'll go pick you up." Jessica couldn't help but smile when she heard Ethan call her wife. She was overjoyed. "Don't worry, wife. It won't happen again in the future. I deliberately got drunk last night," Ethan said. In his previous marriage, he had accumulated too many negative emotions, and his whole person had become a lot more gloomy. He had wanted to find someone to have a good drink with for a long time, but he just never had the chance. It just so happened that Alex asked him out for drinks last night, so he simply got drunk and vented all the suppressed emotions in his heart. At this moment, he felt a lot more relaxed. It was early June, the cusp of late spring and early summer, and the weather was growing scorching. At noon, the sun blazed high in the sky, turning the entire city into an oven. After breakfast, Ethan had initially planned to walk around the manor grounds to familiarize himself with the environment. However, after just a few moments under the sun, he regretted it and promptly retreated back inside the manor to enjoy the air conditioning. Right now, he was sitting on the sofa, cradling half a chilled watermelon in his lap, scooping out the sweet, juicy flesh with a spoon. The chilled watermelon was delightfully sweet, refreshingly cool, and incredibly juicy, perfect for quenching his thirst. Jessica sat beside him, holding a matching spoon. She didn't have her own watermelon half. Instead, she was sharing Ethan's. Ethan naturally had no objection. As newlyweds, this was perfectly normal. Jessica scrolled through her phone with one hand, occasionally reaching over with a spoon in her other hand to scoop some watermelon into her mouth. To any onlookers, they looked exactly like a typical married couple. Ring ring. Just as Jessica was happily scrolling through Instagram reels, a call came in. Seeing the caller ID Sarah Young, her pretty eyebrows furrowed slightly, but she answered with resigned helplessness. "Hello, Sarah? What do you want?" Jessica asked, her voice tinged with impatience. "Jessica, where's my husband?" "Put him on the phone," Sarah Young demanded, getting straight to the point. "Oh." Resigned, Jessica handed the phone to Ethan. "Hello, Ethan, why haven't you unblocked me yet? I can't get through to your phone." Sarah Young's tone was as imperious as ever, as if Ethan should simply obey her every command. "Are you crazy? We're divorced. Why would you still want to call me? Good thing I blocked you so you couldn't harass me," Ethan retorted bluntly, showing no mercy. "You." Sarah Young was instantly furious, her shrill voice laced with impatience. "Ethan, it's been 3 days. How long are you going to keep throwing this tantrum? Aren't you done yet?" "Sarah Young, let me tell you again, we are divorced. Divorced. Are you deaf? We have nothing to do with each other anymore." "Ethan, are you saying you have no intention of getting back together?" "That's right. I never intended to get back together with you," Ethan stated with absolute certainty. "Ethan, you're just doing this to piss me off, aren't you? Let me tell you, I'm really angry now. And this time, no amount of apologizing will work." Sarah Young seethed through gritted teeth. Before the divorce, Ethan would never have dared to speak to her like this. In the past, the slightest hint of her displeasure would have him apologizing immediately, as at his beck and call as could be. But now, Ethan actually dared to be so arrogant and insolent toward her. It was safe to say Ethan had thoroughly infuriated her this time. She decided that no matter how Ethan apologized, she wouldn't forgive him easily. She would make Ethan bitterly regret this. "Apologize? In your dreams?" Ethan scoffed. "Let me tell you, Sarah Young, I'm doing this just to piss you off. Serves you right if you drop dead from anger." "Ethan, you jerk!" Sarah Young let out a furious shriek. Then Ethan heard a sharp crack sound, and the line went dead. Sarah Young must have smashed her iPhone in anger. "Ethan, you..." Jessica opened her mouth, looking like she wanted to say something but hesitated. Satisfying. Ethan turned to her, a gleeful smile spreading across his face. He then dug out a large chunk of watermelon and took a big bite. Today's watermelon seemed even sweeter than usual. "Ah, I'm so mad." In her living room, Sarah Young furiously slammed her iPhone onto the floor. The poor phone screen cracked instantly. "Ethan, you jerk!" Still fuming, Sarah Young continued her hysterical yelling. Her pretty face was twisted with anger, her breathing ragged, her chest heaving. Before, Ethan had always been at her at his beck and call, completely obedient. He wouldn't even dare raise his voice to her. But now, Ethan had dared to curse at her, speaks so harshly, and acts so arrogantly. She couldn't stand it. Sarah, calm down first. Here, have some water. A beautiful woman with immaculate makeup sitting beside her quickly tried to soothe her. Olivia, Ethan went too far. He actually dared to yell at me. He's such a jerk. Sarah Young pouted, looking utterly wronged. Okay, Sarah, let's not talk about him for now. Just try to calm down, okay? The well-dressed woman gently patted her back, patiently comforting her. Her name was Olivia Young. She had met Sarah Young at a speakeasy bar a year ago, and after hanging out a few times, they had gradually become close, now considering themselves good sisters. It's just too much. That Ethan is totally whipped. He needs to be taught a lesson, Sarah Young fumed, still unable to swallow her anger. Sarah, let's calm down first. From her husband's attitude, it really seems like he doesn't want to reconcile, does it? Olivia Young hesitated before speaking. As an outsider, judging from Ethan's merciless tone on the phone, it seemed like he was burning his bridges, leaving no room for retreat. Sarah Young froze for a moment, then shook her head firmly. No way, Olivia. I know him. You have no idea how much he loves me. He used to listen to everything I said. This time he's just still angry. Once he cools down, he'll come apologize to me. Sarah, I think you're being too optimistic. What if he really doesn't get back together with you? What will you do then? Olivia Young probed cautiously. Well, hearing this, Sarah Young paused, a flicker of panic rising in her heart. That's right. What if Ethan was really being stubborn and refused to reconcile? What would she do? She only wanted a trial separation. Surely it wouldn't end in a real divorce, right? Sarah Young shook her head, unwilling to believe it. He won't, Olivia. Ethan loves me so much. He's loved me for so many years. Before we got married, he even promised to love me forever. This trial separation is a big deal, after all. It's normal for him to be angry. I'll give him 2 more weeks. By then, he'll definitely come crawling back to apologize. Even as she said this, Sarah Young felt a growing unease. Logically, 2 or 3 days should have been enough for Ethan to calm down and get over his anger. Based on Ethan's usual behavior, he should have reached out to apologize by now. Yet, Ethan remained defiant, even acting like he didn't care about her at all. This made her undeniably anxious. Suddenly, an idea struck Sarah Young. Her eyes lit up, and a smile bloomed on her face. She immediately turned to Olivia Young and said, "Oh right, Olivia, I'm also pregnant. He'll definitely reconcile with me. Unless he doesn't want this child." Sarah suddenly realized she was pregnant. Instantly, a surge of confidence flowed through her. This was her trump card for getting back together with Ethan, her ultimate weapon to control him. With this child, even if Ethan didn't love her anymore, he would most likely remarry her. Really? You're pregnant with Ethan's child? Olivia Young paused, her attitude shifting instantly. If Sarah was pregnant, Ethan very well might take her back. After all, it concerned the Thompson family bloodline. However, hearing the question, Sarah didn't answer immediately, an awkward expression flickering across her face. Olivia Young hesitated, realizing something wasn't right. Then, as if understanding, she asked uncertainly, the baby, it wouldn't happen to not be Ethan's, would it? Sarah shrank back slightly, her confidence wavering. But she still lifted her chin, stubbornly insisting, it could be his. Okay, I get it. Olivia Young sounded resigned, then adopted a serious tone. Sarah, about the baby, you absolutely cannot let Ethan suspect anything. As long as he thinks it's his child, there's still a good chance you two will get back together. She paused, then chuckled nonchalantly. Honestly, it's not such a big deal if the kid isn't your husband's. None of my 3 sons are my husband's, and he's perfectly happy raising them, completely clueless. Life goes on, doesn't it? Sarah nodded in agreement. Don't worry, I'm not an idiot. I know how to keep my mouth shut about something like this. There's no way I'll let him find out. All right, as long as you know. Olivia Young patted her shoulder, then stood up. By the way, where's your bathroom? I need to use it. At the mention of this, Sarah slapped her forehead. Olivia, I completely forgot. I just called my husband on my iPhone to tell him to come home and unclog the toilet. It's blocked, so you can't use it right now. She pouted, suddenly annoyed. It's all Ethan's fault, always making me angry. I forgot to tell him the important thing. Before, Ethan handled everything around the house, big or small. She never bothered with it. She never had to worry about clogged toilets, running out of toilet paper, not having enough trash bags, or any other chores. She didn't have to worry about a thing. Ethan took excellent care of her. Now that Ethan wasn't around, she suddenly felt lost. Just a clogged toilet left her completely helpless. Oh no, what do we do? Olivia Young's face fell. She really needed to pee. Sarah looked apologetic. Olivia, Can you hold it for a bit? I hired a housekeeper today. She should be here soon. I'll have her unclog the toilet. These past couple of days, without Ethan at home, Sarah, who was used to having everything done for her, felt utterly incompetent. Like she was useless. That's why she hired a housekeeper to take care of her daily needs. After all, she had money now. Okay. Olivia Young had no choice but to hold it and sit back down. Olivia, can you hold it for a bit? I'll try to find a basin for you. It's okay, Sarah. I think I can hold it a little longer. Olivia Young forced a smile, shaking her head to refuse the offer. By the way, Sarah, Olivia Young turned to her, suddenly curious. How much did Jessica give you for borrowing your husband for her wedding? Oh, she gave me over $100,000, Sarah said cheerfully. Talking about it made her feel like she'd hit the jackpot. She hadn't done anything but get a divorce, and in 2 weeks, she'd made over $100,000 pure profit. It was an incredible deal, like money falling from the sky. Wow, so you're loaded now? You can buy whatever you want? Olivia Young's eyes lit up with envy. Her own family wasn't particularly wealthy. Her husband's salary was less than $20,000, which wasn't poverty, but after daily expenses, there wasn't nearly enough left to support her desired socialite lifestyle. Seeing her friend, whose situation was similar to her own, suddenly become rich, how could she not be envious? It's all right, Sarah waved her hand dismissively, not looking overly happy. Instead, she sounded a bit melancholic. Girlfriend, you have no idea. Just the other day, I got the $300,000 deposit, and I only bought a few bags, some necklaces, and a few dresses, and boom, over $200,000 gone. Thinking about it now, money really doesn't last. I originally wanted to buy a sports car and then go on a world tour. Now, it looks like I'll have to wait until after the 2 weeks, when Jessica gives me the remaining $25 million to go on the tour. As for the sports car, I probably can't afford it anymore. Sarah sighed softly, looking troubled. Sigh, girlfriend, I only have $100,000 left now. Looks like I'll have to be frugal for these next 2 weeks. Back at the manor, in the first-floor living room. After the call ended, Ethan nonchalantly continued eating watermelon as if nothing had happened. Jessica, however, seemed to have something she wanted to ask. She kept glancing at Ethan's profile, hesitating several times, words caught in her throat. Just say what's on your mind. Ethan had noticed her glances long ago and looked at her with a hint of resignation. Jessica sat up straight, her large, limpid eyes fixed on him as she asked earnestly, Ethan, are you really not planning to get back together with her? A couple of days ago, when Ethan told her he wouldn't remarry Sarah, she had been happy, but she hadn't really believed him. After all, she had seen firsthand how much Ethan used to love Sarah. She thought Ethan was probably just angry because the divorce was so recent, saying things he didn't mean out of spite. She figured that maybe in a few days, Ethan would go back and apologize to Sarah, and then, after the 2 weeks were up, he would divorce Jessica and remarry Sarah. So, she hadn't taken it too seriously back then and hadn't gotten her hopes up. But now, 3 days had passed since the divorce. Logically, Ethan should have calmed down, yet his attitude remained just as firm. He was cold and merciless towards Sarah, showing no leniency. This made Jessica start to believe that Ethan truly wasn't planning on remarrying her. If Ethan wasn't getting back together with Sarah, didn't that mean she had a chance? Jessica's heart stirred with anticipation, but also with anxiety. That's why she desperately needed to understand Ethan's true intentions now. Yeah, didn't I already tell you? It's impossible between her and me. Not in this lifetime. Ethan nodded firmly, his attitude resolute. Really, Jessica's eyes brightened, and an irrepressible smile spread across her lips. Her heart instantly bloomed with joy. Yeah, why? Ethan watched her sudden excitement, wondering what she was so worked up about. No, nothing. Jessica realized she might have overreacted and quickly tried to compose herself, but the smile wouldn't leave her face. She couldn't contain her happiness. Ethan wasn't getting back together with Sarah. He really wasn't. Didn't that mean the obstacle between her and Ethan was completely gone? If she could just work hard during these 2 weeks to make Ethan fall for her, maybe after the 2 weeks, she wouldn't have to divorce him at all. They could just keep going like this, like a real married couple. At this thought, Jessica's spirits soared, and she felt full of hope for the future. Ethan and Jessica stayed in the manor until 2 in the afternoon. During that time, they mostly just played on their iPhones, only chatting occasionally. With nothing else to do, Ethan felt genuinely bored and somewhat out of sorts. Before, with the Thompson family, he'd been responsible for all the housework, busy from morning till night, with barely any personal time. Now, after the divorce and getting together with Jessica, he didn't have to do anything. No cooking, no laundry. He suddenly had all this free time, which, ironically, made him feel unaccustomed to it. Bore out his mind, he decided to head upstairs to the game room Jessica had set up for him, planning to play some games to kill the tedious hours. As for Jessica, watching his retreating back as he went upstairs, a faint smile touched her lips. They had been sitting at home for most of the day. Ethan was bored, but she wasn't bored at all. On the contrary, she was enjoying every moment. She even felt time was flying by. It was already 2 in the afternoon in the blink of an eye. She wished they could spend the whole day just like this. Even doing nothing made her happy, as long as she was with him. However, less than 5 minutes after Ethan went upstairs, Jessica, sitting alone on the sofa, suddenly felt bored too. Ethan's gaming. I'll cut up some fruit and take it to him. Yes, I need to be more proactive than the last few days. That's how I'll get him to like me. No sooner said than done. Jessica immediately got up and hurried to the kitchen to wash some fruit. Meanwhile, upstairs in the game room, Ethan turned on the computer and logged into his old game account. Staring at the familiar game interface, he felt a momentary daze, a sense of déjà vu, as if he'd stepped back 3 years in time. He hadn't touched a game in the 3 years since marrying Sarah Young. He never thought, in his lifetime, after leaving that woman, he'd be able to return to this familiar game. As soon as Ethan logged in, a familiar gaming buddy immediately invited him to team up. Ethan had almost forgotten who this friend was, but the moment the guy spoke, he paused, then recognized him. It was none other than his old gaming buddy, Alex Carter. Holy crap, Ethan. Never thought I'd live to see the day you played this game again. Alex's shocked voice came through the headset. Since Ethan got married, he hadn't gamed at all, and Alex had lost his gaming partner. He never expected that today, 3 years later, Ethan would actually return to the game. Alex couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. Yeah, I didn't expect I'd ever log into this game again either, Ethan replied, his tone tinged with emotion. Back then, Sarah Young had even sold his computer to make him quit gaming. To keep her happy, he had sworn he'd never play games again. Yet here he was, 3 years later, back in the familiar game. Right then, let's start a match. I'll help you get back into the swing of things, Alex said. Sure, let's do it. The two quickly entered a match. Having not played for 3 years, Ethan was clearly rusty, his skills noticeably diminished. Need a level 3 backpack. Got an 8x scope here. Save it for you. Come on, I'll show you how to rat. A squad just landed over there. Let's go ambush them. Although his skills were rusty, the top-spec PC Jessica had arranged for him made the gaming experience incredibly smooth. Ethan gradually rediscovered the joy he had lost. Just as the two were immersed in the game world, the door quietly opened, and a head peeked in. Seeing Ethan focused on his game, Jessica smiled. Then, she gently pushed the door open wider and walked in. Although she moved quietly, the sound of the door opening still alerted Ethan. He took off his headset and turned around to see Jessica walking in with 2 plates of cut fruit, smiling warmly. What are you doing here? Ethan asked, slightly taken aback. As far as he knew, Jessica didn't play games and wasn't interested in them at all. Besides, there was only one computer in the room, so she couldn't play even if she wanted to. I got bored downstairs, so I came up to watch you play for a bit, Jessica said. Just keep playing, don't mind me. Okay. Ethan put his headset back on and went back to his game. After placing the 2 plates of fruit on the computer desk, Jessica went to the fridge for 2 cold drinks. She then returned to Ethan's side, pulled up a chair, and sat down. Instantly, a faint, pleasant fragrance wafted from her, subtly reaching Ethan's nose. Ethan glanced at her, but didn't pay her any more attention. Having been away from gaming for 3 years, he was concentrating hard, not daring to let his focus waver. Jessica sat beside him, resting her chin on one hand, watching him with keen interest, as if she could never get enough. Her bright eyes were filled with undisguised affection. Seeing Ethan rediscover his former happiness made her genuinely happy too. Whatever Ethan had lost because of Sarah Young, she wanted to make up for it 1,000, 10,000 times over. Let me be the one to spoil the man I like. Ethan didn't notice her blatant adoration. His attention was completely focused on the game. Alex, he's super low, push him. Damn it, you call that super low? I hit him 5 freaking times, and he's still not dead. Soon, Ethan finished his first match. Seeing this, Jessica immediately picked up a fruit fork, speared a piece of apple, and attentively offered it to Ethan's lips. Here, have some fruit. Ethan instinctively started to open his mouth to take the apple, but then he paused, suddenly realizing, I can get it myself. Ethan looked slightly awkward. He felt things were getting a bit too intimate between them. Although they were husband and wife, they both knew it was just a temporary arrangement. Besides, there was no one else in the room. They didn't need to put on an act for anyone. Oh, don't be so formal with me, Jessica insisted, brushing off his protest and popping the apple into his mouth. You're gaming. Your hands are busy, right? Well, thanks then. Ethan mumbled around the apple, pausing for a second. Seeing Jessica's natural expression, he didn't refuse further. After all, even though their marriage was just for show, they had done intimate things like holding hands, and they'd even served each other food during meals. Jessica feeding him a piece of fruit didn't seem like such a big deal now. Don't mention it. Jessica waved a hand dismissively, acting nonchalant, but the corners of her lips curled into a hidden, delighted smile. Soon, Ethan started the next match. Jessica picked up the fruit fork again, speared another piece of apple, and ate it with relish. And so it went. Ethan played his game while accepting Jessica's feeding, and Jessica seemed to thoroughly enjoy it. After feeding Ethan, she would eat a piece herself from the same fork. She appeared to savor the feeling, a constant faint smile playing on her beautiful face. Even just sharing the same fork and plate of fruit with Ethan was enough to make her incredibly happy. Gradually, however, this didn't seem to be enough for Jessica. After taking a sip of her drink, her eyes darted sideways for a moment, and a sly curve formed on her lips. Then, she held the drink she had just sipped from directly in front of Ethan's mouth. Here, have a drink. Absorbed in his game, Ethan didn't even glance at her. He just subconsciously opened his mouth, accepting her offering as before. Seeing Ethan drink so unguardedly from where she had just drunk, Jessica's eyes instantly lit up, sparkling with delight. This counts as an indirect kiss, right? She thought gleefully, the smile on her lips deepening. After Ethan took a sip, she cheerfully took another sip herself. And wouldn't you know it, the drink somehow tasted even sweeter than before. So good. If only I could be with him like this every day. Jessica gazed lovingly at Ethan's profile, her heart full of contentment. She spent the entire afternoon savoring this private time with him. It wasn't until 4 o'clock that Jessica finally got up and left the room to use the restroom. Ethan, has Jessica left? Alex, who was gaming with Ethan, seemed to notice Jessica wasn't around anymore and asked. Yeah, she went to the restroom. Ethan nodded slightly. Alex paused, then suddenly asked out of the blue. Ethan, I remember last night when we were drinking, you said your wife here is committed to never getting married, right? Yeah, why? Ethan didn't understand why he'd suddenly bring this up. His curiosity piqued. Alex recalled what his girlfriend had told him. He hesitated for a moment, then tentatively spoke. Ethan, have you ever thought that maybe she's not actually against marriage? Ethan was taken aback, his expression puzzled. Why would you say that? Everyone close to Jessica knew she was against marriage. It wasn't exactly a secret. But now Alex was suddenly claiming she wasn't, which left Ethan completely baffled. Alex explained, Ethan, my girlfriend, said, she thinks Jessica might actually have someone she likes. But, apparently, she couldn't be with the person she liked back then, so she told everyone she was against marriage as a cover. Your girlfriend said that? Ethan frowned, thinking, wait, you and your girlfriend have only met Jessica once, right? What makes her so sure? But then, Alex paused and dropped a bombshell. Because, she said the person Jessica has always liked is you. Me? Ethan was floored. His mind went completely blank. Jessica liked him? What kind of joke was this? Jessica was a socialite. Soon she'd be a super rich heiress worth billions. And she was stunningly beautiful too. Most importantly, Jessica used to be his ex-wife's BFF. How could she possibly like him? Don't be ridiculous. There's no way she likes me. Don't dismiss it just yet. Alex patiently laid out his reasoning. Ethan, look, isn't it possible that Jessica has liked you all along, but because you were married, she claimed to be against marriage? And my girlfriend also said, maybe she only became BFFs with your ex-wife because of you, Alex added. Because of me? Ethan thought about it, but still found it unlikely. He shook his head again. Impossible. Jessica's gorgeous. Plenty of guys chase her, countless men far better than me. Why would she like me? The reason she didn't marry before must be because she's genuinely against it. He paused, then asked with a confused look, besides, you and your girlfriend only met her once. How can you be so sure I'm the one she likes? Ethan, you were drunk last night, right? When your wife came to pick you up, you didn't see how worried she was about you. That anxious look, you could almost see the heartache written all over her face. Alex recalled the scene, speaking with a hint of envy. And when you threw up, she didn't flinch. She held you, wiped your face, cleaned your mouth. She held me. Ethan's eyes widened, surprised again. He and Jessica were married, sure, but it was a trial separation. The most intimate they'd been so far was holding hands or feeding each other. He hadn't realized Jessica had held him while he was out cold. Yeah, she held you. You even threw up on her, and she didn't mind at all. She only cared if you were feeling okay. If that's not liking someone, what is? Well, Ethan was speechless. He couldn't believe Jessica had not only held him, but he'd also thrown up on her. The point was, Alex was adamantly insisting Jessica liked him. Ethan fell into thought. His ex-wife's BFF had a secret crush on him? Seriously? He thought about it again and again, but ultimately shook his head. The whole thing seemed too outlandish. His ex-wife's BFF liking him? And claiming to be against marriage, just for him? How is that possible? Ethan knew his own limitations. He was just an ordinary, run-of-the-mill guy. Why on earth would Jessica fall for someone like him? Besides, the whole thing was just Alex and his girlfriend's speculation. They barely knew Jessica. How could they claim she liked him? It wasn't credible. Most importantly, Jessica had already explained it to him. She hadn't specifically gone to pick him up last night. She just happened to be up late binge-watching a show. She called him on a whim, heard he was drunk, and only then decided to go get him. Alex, I still don't buy it. You guys don't know Jessica. Besides, I'm just a divorce guy now. She's rich and beautiful. Why would she possibly like me? All right, if you don't believe it, I can't force you. Alex sighed, sounding a bit helpless. Truthfully, Alex wasn't entirely convinced himself, but remembering how serious his girlfriend looked when she talked about it, he somehow felt it had to be true. Alex dropped the subject and switched to teasing. Still, Ethan, if you actually end up with Jessica for real, you'll have hit the jackpot for life. Think about it. When you were with Sarah Young, you had to do everything. You were like her servant. But if you're with Jessica, you'll go from rags to riches overnight. First off, she's loaded, so no more chores for you, and no more living on less than $1,000 a month. And look, now you can play games all you want. Jessica doesn't bother you. Think about how different this life is compared to when you were with Sarah Young, right? You got a point there. Ethan chuckled, nodding in agreement. Since being with Jessica, he felt much more relaxed. His mood had improved significantly, and the suffocating feeling was gone. But this is just a trial separation, Ethan reminded him. I'm not getting any ideas. I just want to cooperate with her, so she can get her inheritance and then figure out my next move. Although this married life with Jessica felt pretty good, Ethan knew it was all thanks to this fake marriage arrangement. So, he didn't dare develop any real feelings for Jessica. Not that he had any, anyway. He just wanted to play his part as her husband well. The two played games until 6 in the evening, only reluctantly stopping as the sun began to set. Ethan stood up and stretched, feeling an unprecedented sense of satisfaction and release. 3 years. It had been 3 whole years since he'd enjoyed gaming so freely and intensely. Suddenly rediscovering this old joy lifted his spirits considerably. Ethan opened his door and went downstairs. On the ground floor, the long dining table was already laden with a steaming, fragrant steak dinner. 2 housekeepers stood silently beside the table, discreetly fulfilling their roles. Meanwhile, Jessica was sitting on the sofa, savoring a milkshake. Robert stood behind her, watching her back with a fond, indulgent expression in his eyes. Hearing footsteps from upstairs, Jessica's delicate ears immediately perked up. The next moment, she looked up towards the stairs. Her eyes lit up with excitement the instant she saw Ethan descending. She immediately put down her milkshake, got up, and hurried over. "Hubby, you're down?" Smiling radiantly, Jessica quickly walked over and, right in front of everyone, threw herself into Ethan's arms. Ethan froze for a second, caught completely off guard by her sudden action. Feeling the soft, fragrant body in his arms, a faint, refreshing scent emanated from Jessica, lingering around him, pleasant and soothing. As far as he could recall, this was the first time Jessica had hugged him like this. Although Alex had mentioned she'd held him when he was drunk, Ethan believed she had only done that out of necessity while taking care of him. Besides, he'd been completely unaware in his drunken state, unable to feel anything. But now Jessica's soft body was holding him tightly. He could even feel the smoothness of her skin through her light clothing, sensed the faint warmth radiating from her. How could this not surprise him? In that moment, Alex's words echoed in his mind. Jessica likes you. Could it be? Does she really like me? Impossible. Just as doubt crept in, Jessica looked up from his embrace, her exquisitely beautiful face tilted towards him. She chuckled softly and whispered, "We're husband and wife. A hug is perfectly reasonable, right?" Reasonable. Ethan frowned, thought for a moment, couldn't find fault with her logic, and nodded. Maybe he was just overthinking things. Jessica was probably just doing this for the inheritance. Besides, he was divorced now anyway. Let Jessica do whatever she wanted. It didn't matter anymore. Jessica's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled, pressing her head tightly against his solid chest again, nuzzling against him contentedly like a kitten enjoying the moment. What Ethan couldn't see was the sly smile secretly playing on Jessica's lips. After all, she and Ethan were husband and wife now. She certainly wasn't going to miss such an opportunity to get closer. Besides, Ethan had decided not to get back together with Sarah, so she no longer had any reservations. She had held back a bit the past few days, but now she didn't want to restrain herself at all. She wanted to be more proactive, more passionate, because only by actively pursuing him could she make Ethan fall for her and, hopefully, make him not want the trial separation in 2 weeks. As for that woman, Sarah, she could go get lost. She would cherish the boy she liked. Not far away, Robert Louis, well past his 70th year, watched the young couple embracing. He shook his head slightly, a smile of helpless indulgence on his face. He could see that his miss was very attached to Ethan. She practically wanted to cling to him all day long, never wanting to be apart. Seeing his miss so happy brought him a sense of relief and reassurance. Jessica stayed in Ethan's arms for half an hour before reluctantly letting go. Smiling sweetly, she said, "Hubby, you must be tired after gaming all day. Come on, let's go have that steak dinner." She took Ethan's large hand, interlaced their fingers, held it tightly, and led him briskly towards the dining table. Ethan let himself be pulled to the table and sat down, beginning to eat the steak dinner. "Hubby, open up. This piece is delicious." Looking at the smiling Jessica before him, Ethan felt her behavior towards him today was noticeably more enthusiastic and forward than usual. The past couple of days, when they ate, they would occasionally put food onto each other's plates, but never directly fed each other. But now, Jessica was proactively bringing food right to his lips, wanting to feed him directly. Although he clearly sensed the shift in Jessica's attitude, Ethan didn't question it. He simply smiled and opened his mouth to accept the food she offered. After all, Jessica had already fed him upstairs earlier today, and they were husband and wife now. Feeding each other was quite normal. If he showed any reluctance, it might arouse suspicion in the others. Seeing Ethan accept her feeding so readily, the corners of Jessica's rosy lips curved upwards, her smile irrepressible. For the next few minutes, Jessica spent most of the time happily feeding Ethan, eating very little herself. After a while, Jessica put down her chopsticks. Pouting her rosy lips slightly, she said in a playfully pleading tone, "Hubby, my hand's tired. Will you feed me now?" Jessica looked up at him, her large, limpid eyes gazing intently, sparkling with eager anticipation. This." Ethan paused, momentarily taken aback. He didn't quite process her request at first. In the few days they'd been married, although he'd put food on her plate, he had never actually fed her anything directly. He hadn't expected Jessica to suddenly ask him to feed her. However, remembering they were husband and wife, Ethan hesitated for a moment before giving in. He was divorced anyway, it didn't matter. Besides, doing this would help Jessica secure her inheritance sooner. "All right then, what do you want to eat?" "I'll feed you," Ethan said with a resigned smile. "Really?" Jessica's face lit up with surprised delight. Beaming, she said, "Anything is fine. As long as it's hubby feeding me, I'll love eating it." This was the first time Ethan had ever fed her. Even if he fed her jalapeno poppers, she'd eat them with tears in her eyes. Ethan casually picked up a piece of beef stroganoff and brought it to her lips. Jessica opened her small, rosy mouth, took a bite, and ate it happily. Food fed by hubby just tastes better. Jessica beamed, her eyes crinkling with joy, her expression radiating pure happiness. Ethan fed her a few more bites, and Jessica ate each one gleefully. In the eyes of Robert Louis and the two housekeepers, the pair looked exactly like a sweet, newly married couple, completely devoted to each other. The entire manor seemed filled with the sweet scent of romance. The meal lasted for another half an hour before concluding. "I'm a bit full. I'm going out for a walk," Ethan said after dinner, wanting to stretch his legs and also familiarize himself with the manor grounds. "I want to go too, can I?" Hearing this, Jessica, who was back on the sofa, immediately turned her head, her expression eager and hopeful. If Ethan was going for a walk, she naturally wanted to accompany him, unwilling to miss this chance to be alone with him. "Let's go," Ethan agreed softly, feeling slightly resigned. "Coming." Jessica beamed and walked over briskly. Just as Ethan expected her to take his hand as before, she instead wrapped both arms around his arm, pressing her body close, half leaning against him. Instantly, Ethan felt an inescapable softness pressing against his entire arm. Ahem. Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly, suddenly feeling rather uncomfortable. After all, Jessica's action was excessively intimate. "What's wrong?" Jessica looked up at him innocently with her large, clear eyes, a hint of confusion on her face. She seemed unaware that her actions were giving Ethan quite the advantage. In nothing, Ethan shook his head, pretending everything was normal. They were husband and wife now anyway, and he was just dutifully playing his part for Jessica's act. Besides, he was already divorced. Why overthink it? Crucially, he was the one getting the advantage here. He wasn't losing anything. It didn't matter.